Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. We've got ourselves a tough post-game discussion to have to chop up today. We've had a lot of fun wins we've gotten to talk about this year. Team in first place times this year. A lot of good. This is not going to maybe as much of one of those tonight as our Seattle Seahawks fall, unfortunately, to the Green Bay Packers in a game that at times almost felt like you lost. Almost 4 minutes left to go in the first quarter. Just from a spirit standpoint, from a fight standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, from how their game plan was set versus how our game plan was set. Seahawks just didn't have much of anything to really draw up upon. It's saying something that they were able to get back into within 10 points late in this game, but plenty to look at, plenty to discuss and talk about with this game. We'll see where Geno's going to be at. We're hearing structurally there's nothing out or wrong on the knee and under initial tests, so that part is good. I would be surprised, though, if we do necessarily see him back next week. They very well may decide we'll rest him the week and just try to get the last 2 wins of the year and go that route with it. We'll see. We did see that Sam Howell is certainly a pretty far drop-off from Geno if you're going to trot him out there instead, and it would be very hard to see up against a team in the Vikings that run a lot of creative fronts to believe that Sam would be able to stand tall and be able to hang on in that kind of scenario and situation. So we'll discuss it over tonight. I know people, as always, on these kind of real disappointing losses and embarrassing loss on prime time. I think there's a draw as much as ever for conclusions to be reached, and I will get that and understand that. As I've said with you guys, I'm kind of letting this whole season to play out to kind of reach finally where I want to sit on certain things. And so I will still probably myself maintain a little bit of a patient level on it, though I will understand there being more of a draw here as we start to get down to the final embers of this season. And so, you've had more data. There's less games for this thing to turn in a different direction from where it's been, be it versus a player or be a way something's going on this team in general. Let's see where you guys are at, though. This is going to be open discussion with you guys more than it is with me blabbering away. I'd like to see where my 12s are at tonight. I'd like to see where my fellow Seahawks fans are at as far as their mindset and where people are kind of pulling to and what they'd like to see. I wish I had more optimism coming in tonight, but I've got to say, coming off the end of this, just doesn't seem like a team that is going to be able to mount enough of this to even get themselves in the playoff at this point, especially if Sam Howell is going to be the guy starting for you for a couple of games. Now, that becomes almost neither here nor there, because then the view comes quickly to what's the next steps. Where do we go in the direction to get ourselves to a contender state? And that's where it gets a lot harder to figure out what exactly is going to be the right pathway. Paulie704, thank you for being a member of the channel. He says, I want a petition that we never go full highlighter again. I second that petition. I'll sign it. I'll sign my name multiple times. It doesn't look good. It's not Motive, yes, Sam Howell was bad, but I want to see him with a full week of reps. I know he's not Geno's level, but I don't think he's as bad as he looked. I mean, I think that while you might get a marginal bit more motive from him with a week of full reps, I think that he gave you more of what you would see from a game by him going forward than he is of a player that would reverse. Geno Smith came into the game a couple of years ago against a very good Rams defense that had knocked out Russell Wilson with Aaron Donald. And Geno Smith took over at, the 3-yard line in his own territory, and he marched the team 97 yards for a touchdown. He kept that team in that game through the end of that game, and Tyler Lockett gets pulled down at the end, or he mounts probably a comeback and goes and gets you that win. That's a stark difference in play from what you saw versus Sam Howell coming out there in this game, who couldn't throw for over 25 yards on 14 attempts. This is not a rookie quarterback. It's not a guy that's not started a game in the NFL. He's in his 3rd season. And I have said that he is far off of Geno Smith. And everything that I've told and foretold and prophetically said to you guys would be the case with Sam Howell if you put him on a football field behind this current Seahawks team played out today in this game. So this is going to be one where I've been saying it consistently going back to training camp going back now for 4 months straight, saying this is what's going to happen if he goes out there. This is what's going to happen if he goes out there. And I've been very consistent on this. Well, let someone call me a liar here in the chat on this. So maybe I'm a little bit tarnished with my view of this one with him, Motive, but I just think he is not just merely a half step back here. I don't know that there's a lot of room of growth you're going to get from him, but maybe it's all kind of null and void because Geno just might not be able to go. Green Bean says Bo Nix look like trash the first week too. Rookie quarterbacks never look like world beaters in their first start. Rookie quarterbacks? What do we... Bo Nix looked bad in his first week, in his first game as a rookie in Lumen on the road. Sam Howell's not a rookie. So for the folks that are going to be the pro Sam Howells, I'm getting a sense for this now. I'm getting a little sense. For the pro Sam Howell folks, and I get that they're still going, I'm not going to push hard on you guys too much with this, but this is not a rookie. I don't maybe expect this guy to go out there and pull off some great performance on the other side of it. But that was trash. That was garbage. So please, you can be pro Sam on this, but that was an absolutely horrific performance by Sam Howell out there. And to draw a comparison back to Bo Nix, who was starting his first game versus Sam Howell, who had a whole season of play last year in his second year last year. He played every game, started just about every game but one throughout his whole second season. And has had now his whole third year to be ready for this situation versus Bo Nix, who's rookie quarterback, first game on the road in what used to be one of the tougher environments to play in the NFL. I think if it's completely fair to still have hope for Sam Howell in the long term, but let's also make sure we're not being disingenuous with how we portray the situation too, with how he looked and what he did and what he didn't do out there. That was god awful. 5 of 14. A 1.7 yard per average per attempt, 1.7, a 14.6 rating, a 3.3 QBR. I hope for Sam, I do, but that was awful. That was as bad as it gets from the quarterback position. He couldn't hit a flat route. John Naylor, thank you for the $2 donation. And John, sorry at the end too, got those donos, came in last at the end of the game there from you, and I wasn't able to address as much as I could have with that. So thank you for the donation, man. He says the 2025 draft is going to be lit. It's going to be very interesting to see which way they go with it and what moves John looks to make, and then how he sets the stage for it with what he does in free agency. And obviously there's been a track record recently of maybe spending less on prime guys to go with more value across the board to make sure you get to the draft to stay in the value model of things. But yeah, draft's going to be fun, man. Some good players in it. I'm starting to turn slowly but surely into getting my scouting on some of these guys. And I've actually liked, maybe there's not as much flash as far as star power goes, but there's some decent value in there. Brian echoes what I say. Sam's not a rookie. Yeah, it's not a rookie. Rilo, Reek at free safety. I don't think so. He's not going to tackle good enough at safety at either free safety or strong safety to make that happen. Even free safeties, especially in this defense, because of the split safety looks and the fact that you ask your free safeties to do more tackling than normal defenses, I don't think he could work as a free safety. He's got to stay as just a corner. Now, Jacob, if we can beat Minnesota, the Bears game won't matter. And if we can beat Minnesota, sorry, Jacob, the Bears game won't matter. And all we have to do is beat the Rams and we win the division. Very true, Jacob. Kind of all comes down to that, probably. Most likely. There's ways not, but for the most chances, the way it'll break, where it comes down to that Rams game at the end of the year. But you could take care of some business this next week by getting that Vikings win, that's for sure. Yep, being counter, we agree on that. Woolen's too soft to be safety. Green Bay, the guy's 24. People were mad at JSN for the first half of the season too. Yeah, it's again, if it was more of a rookie point, Green Bay, but again, a guy that had a lot of history in playing in college. He started quite a bit of football games there, and a guy that started all of last year. I need you to be coming out of the game. When you come out there, I need you to not just sort of throw up all over yourself and look completely overwhelmed. But that's why I wanted to give you a little bit of the comparison too to versus Geno coming in a couple of years ago. Similar situation. Quarterback gets knocked out. You're behind the 8 ball. You're behind in the game. You're not set up for success, but you're able to be at least manageable and functional as a quarterback coming into that game versus what we saw from Sam in this game, which was not. Alice the Gamer says, why is Reek on this team if he's not going to improve? I think that'll be a tougher question to ask as we get into the offseason. I think from the team standpoint, he was coming off kind of a down year last year, the injury situation. So there was a little bit of, if you're going to try to move him in the offseason last year, probably not at his highest value, probably better to see if it can continue to take root and set and see if the tackling can come forward and he can have the bounce back season. But I think it's a different situation coming into this offseason. Monsoon, this game infuriated me too, man. Kind of sucked out the life a bit of me on this one. KDX Law, Reek sucks. Time to let him go. If I was a gambling man, I'd say at this point that it's much more likely that Seattle moves Reek in a trade this offseason to a team that gets very enamored by his coverage skills. And I would probably be understandably in favor of that. Megan says, won't make it back until later if you're around. Have a meeting. Sounds good, Megan. I don't know if we're going super late tonight. We'll just see where the chat's at on it tonight. Young Battle Game, Mike Max got to send Tariq Woolen to Navy SEAL boot camp or some shit. Yeah, I would like that to be the case. Young Bido, I think the team's done plenty of challenging him up in course this season, and I don't know if that's really going to come far forward with him at all. I'm very skeptical. I'm also getting a little bit thrown off by some of these mental errors and issues and lapses he has as well. The gives up the play down the field, the not aware of what they're trying to do as the clock winds down with 10 seconds to the half. I'm seeing a guy that's not a lot of processing power going on in that field right now. And that's, really getting me kind of out. DeZillo, spam foul through the all awesomely what an inspiration. Spam foul. Spam foul. I like that nickname. Through the interception, all awesomely. What an inspiration. Exactly, DeZillo. Mike Skinner could be Tom Brady out there. Doesn't matter. That O-line is unwatchable for years on end. Only a matter of time before quarterbacks like Russ and Geno gets injured. You got 2 quarterbacks broken now, John. Geno got broken last year. And he got broken because your offensive line couldn't hold up. It's a yearly thing then, and John just has this big major blind spot that he just ignores with it, doesn't want to address it, doesn't just acts like it's just gonna fix itself. And it boggles my mind at this point how many off seasons he's had to go through with this, where we end up in the same place, multiple quarterbacks over, and you're going, why? Why won't you cross this bridge? You got to cross it. You keep trying to take the water. You keep trying to jump it. Just cross the bridge. I don't want to do that. You better do it this off season. Robs, thank you for the $7 donation, Robs, as well as also being a member of the channel. I thank you for that. Geno is quarterback 1 for a reason. For all the people wanting Howell to start, y'all saw what happened. We move, season ain't over. Season ain't over. 3 big games coming. Prayers for Geno. Yeah, I do hope Geno can come back. Even if he can't come back, he's going to be missing a little bit of that escapability to get around from some of that pressure. And you need that escapability in this pocket with this offensive line and how they're holding up right now, especially for next week in that Minnesota game. But that's exactly where I've been with Geno. When you went to training camp and you watched these 2 guys in training camp, there was a mile of difference apart between them and how they processed, how they saw guys come over open, how they threw with anticipation, and how on the days that I was out there was just in over his head. What you saw today in this game is what I saw from Howell in training camp. This has consistently been the same way. And it's not to say I'm out on Howell in any way. It's just out on Howell on this year of having any potential for him to give you any performance that's going to help push this team forward if that's what we're hoping him to do. And if the hope is that we're going to develop Howell by just throwing him out there in these 3 games and just sort of, punt the season, I'm not sure how much real development you're getting in 3 games of a stretch of Sam Howell for you at quarterback here, especially with where he's at from that performative level right now, like we saw tonight. Yeah, hopefully Geno can bounce back. Season is not over. That is true, Robs. Very true. And I always like the optimism in these kind of nights like this. So thank you for that. But yeah, we've got still a potential here. And this team, if it's done something, it's been showing you that they can be resilient. And it might look real dark, but they can find a way to still scratch out and pull themselves some light back the other way. And Grenade says, John Schneider has no more excuses for this O-line anymore. This loss is on him. Robert says, Watkins synopsises of tonight's game. Easy synopsis, Robert, and good evening. This one's easy. You walk out and know through the week, the man in charge, the big dog, he who runs on high, Josh Jacobs, not love, Jacobs, just got to worry about. Instead, 8 straight touches to this man. We just can't stop him. He's unstoppable. Over and over again, first drive, set the tone, Robert, in a big way. And we just couldn't pick it up from there. It was dead in the water. Like that. No. Nothing left. Nothing left at all, Robert. Watkins distressed. Robs, thank you for the 12 months as a Hawks Nest member. Thank you for that year-long support. Go Hawks. Geno haters, keep hiding. Keep hiding out there. We see ya. We see ya. Oh, yeah, we see you big time. Thank you for that, Robs. Mark Sanchez, appreciate the $5 donation. Earlier, I heard that Geno will be out a minimum 2 games. That's the season. Howell was and is awful. It's time to scout Milroe or Gabriel. Very well might be the case. Very well might be the case. And Gabriel, both those 2 guys are interesting kind of for 2 different reasons, Mark. And maybe one of those 2 guys, and the guy like in the case of Gabriel, is probably the guy that has, if you're looking for maybe an alignment to a Russell Wilson type cat that John looked to before around those middle round kind of section, who might appeal to him. A Doug Gabriel type might be, not Doug, isn't Doug Gabriel, different. Gabriel might be the type of guy to do that. Gabriel might be the type to do that. So they may go that route. Very possible. And I agree with you. I think if you got Hal the next 2 games, I don't know if Hal can beat the Bears. But it could come down to, too, with the way that this plays out, where you lose this game against the Vikings anyway, you beat the Bears, and we might come down to that final game of the season not mattering because the tiebreaker becomes irrelevant. If the Rams get another game extra ahead of us on the divisional record, then we're done in the water. And even if it's tied, then it just takes you down to the next thing. And I think when I went down through the tiebreakers before on this, it didn't align out well for you. That's why so much was riding on this Packers game. But yeah, we'll be deeply looking at the quarterbacks as much as ever this year, Mark. Going through them as deeply as ever. Not because there's as much the true blue clear guys that are going to be the top of the pops, but because the fact that you're going to hope that maybe you can find one of those Russ Wilson type of guys into that middle round function of things, because there's not a clear alternative pathway out there for you to really truly upgrade the position. It's unfortunate, but that's, where that is at. Say nothing of also needing to address the offensive line. Ruiz, Super Bowl champs, thank you for the $2 donation. Appreciate you for that. He says, Christopher Walken voiced for the Rams in first place. You had the odds so long ago, plus 1,500 million forever. You could have won so much money. Bet them. First place when they're in the bottom. But the Rams, I'll tell you this now, Ruiz, the Rams, they're like Drake from the bottom to the top. Now they're here. And I don't know if we can stop them. It might be going too fast. Even barely beating the poor 49ers in the rain. Be going too fast. We might be too broken. Our quarterback broken. Our spirit broken. But for now, you're above, but just wait. We'll be there soon. Give us 2 weeks. Thank you, Ruiz. John Naylor, thank you for the $2 donation. 2025 draft will be lit. I hope it will be, man. I'm looking forward to it. I love the draft time of year. Addis the Gamer, thank you for the $2 donation. Why is Rick on the team? Oh, I think I answered that already. Sorry. I already answered that one there, Addis. So, yeah, he was on the team. They were open for this year of development. They saw a guy that could travel with number one wide receivers, that could play man and zone coverage, that was long, that was fast as hell. I mean, Reek is a specimen for the position. And so you hope you can develop that because he has the skills that you can't teach. He has the abilities you can't teach. And that's the part that I think the coaching staff was looking to wager a guess on. I think that they also probably thought they had a little bit of redundancy of help out there with a guy like Trey Brown, who also at the same time as Tariq, has seemingly not taken a step forward in his game either. So it's there's a little bit of that as well, as there's not a lot of push going on behind Woolen at that corner position. But I don't think Addis is going to maintain that way going forward. John Naylor, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, Pumpkin realizes it'll be a long night. Yeah, she knows it's going to be a strap-in kind of evening. And here we go. She's putting on the hard hat. She's putting on the hard hat. She's going to have a little bit of soot in her face here before the night's over. It's the way it goes sometimes, John. JRD, thank you for the $5 donation, and you guys are amazing as ever. Thank you for all of the support to the channel. I really appreciate it. You guys are unbelievably kind. I know a lot of people are in some tough moods tonight, but you guys are being ever supportive as ever, and I really thank you for that. JRD says, with a $5 donation, we might as well move Reek to receiver since he cares about catching more than coverage. Well, then you go, I don't know if he catches well enough to do that. That's why they had to flip him to the corner position in the first place, probably a bit. But, it's I think the best outcome on this is probably a different landing space for Reek. And finding a team that's, again, maybe more enamored with those coverage skills, ability to take away the ball, and that you're able to get a little bit back for him on the other side of it. And I think that this is probably where this is trending to. I like Reek. I would like to see him here long term, all things being equal. Like I said, he's got an ability list that is like you have put him together in Madden, and that's the only place you could put this kind of player together. And he's so very close in so many different ways to being able to break through, including even as a tackler at times. Like you can feel him get just right there on the edge of it, where he's just scratching, just to almost kind of break through. But it's not breaking through, and certain times in certain games this year, it's felt backtracking. And it's a kind of a decision point. You had that chance to kind of let it simmer for a year here now, but it becomes a decision point, JRD, now. Dave Barclay, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, Geno is better than Brock Brick. Hashtag fire Lyle. I was checking the Twitter. We got our Twitter DMs in there with all of our guys in the round table, and Jesse's already on it tonight. That one interception with Geno, he's in there just, Geno sucks. So he's already rolling, but I do believe that as well. I would tell you, Dave, and I know you might not be on favor of this, and I'm sure not a lot of Niner fans would give me much on this, but I think if Geno's your quarterback the last 2 years, I think you guys are probably winning a Super Bowl. Because there's things defenses can't take away that they can take away right now in that Niner defense, and throws he could make, and Shanahan would do a lot better. He's got a lot better offensive line he'd be working with up there than he's had up here. There's a 33 drop. We only dropped back tonight, Dave, 33 times, and you got sacked 7 times. Once every 4 times your quarterbacks drop back to pass in this game, you got sacked. John Naylor, thank you for the $2 donation. Pumpkin wants another hit of catnip watching all 22. Pumpkin actually, shout out to our guy Eric out there, sent me some catnip for Pumpkin. If you guys want here and we get bored enough tonight, I'll play a little video of her playing around with it. But she was digging it. Fresh catnip, man. She got down that ground. She was... she got really, really high. But yeah, we might have to do that to get through the All-22. A couple shots, a little catnip. Feed me more Seahawks. Thank you for the $20 donation. That is very kind of you, Feed Me. I really appreciate that. Very, very kind of you. Happy birthday to me, I guess. Thanks, Seahawks. This game showed a lot. Reek is limited, not worth paying. And Grubb, how many times are we going to go for 7-step drops like you're on drugs? And if Jake talks Super Bowl, waste of RT time, go Hawks. Jake's eyes are only going to get bigger. That belly more hungry with us coming off this loss and now them up in first place. And yeah, this is where I start to reach this conclusion and where I say that we're going to start to have some guys and players here where it's hard for me to do as much of potentially like I have throughout a lot of this year and saying, okay, tap the brakes, give this time for this thing to fully play out to where it's going to be to its final form. We're to the final form. We got 3 games left. You've played 14 games. You have pretty clearly, pretty succinctly, here's who this team is, here's what they are, here's who this player is, here's what he can and cannot do. And I think over the 3 years of Woolen, you have a player that's not bad. Not bad. Let's not oversell it. Player that's got some value. But as you're trying to assemble this defense and make sure you got the right guys in the house to make this defense work right, is he that guy in that way? Hard for me to see at this point. Grubb, another guy, Feed Me, who you want to make that season-long assessment with. Comes into this game, and I'm sure he is licking his chops thinking, hey, I got to finally a team that's not rocking strength along that front four, who doesn't have a real complex defensive scheme. And I can drop a lot of more of these longer developing routes, and with our pass protection getting better in recent weeks, it'll probably hold up enough for me to get this done. And while that can be your game plan coming into the game, it's understandable. It doesn't remain as your game plan when you start to read and feel for the fact that you're not holding up in pass protection. And it really becomes mind-numbing to me when he gets into 3rd and 2s and this team's got this high preoccupation. I don't know why to God we do, but we've got this high preoccupation with 3rd and 1s and 3rd and 2s for looking to hit drop city down the field with a chunk play. And this is always countered up by Geno staring down the field because the coverages have dropped to depth on us. And you scratch your head and you stare at it and you go, why are, you know, why don't we just go, you got a spread system. It is boggle. I've known the fact, Feed Me, that Grubb's got the draw and the want to get to the shot plays within his spread system, but the spread system has conceptually so many parts to it that are built in for short, quick throws. Spread concepts, 3rd guy sitting there in the flat, wide open, pop, hit him on the quick pass, 1st down, get your next set of downs and keep it going. But Grubb will fall back into that trap of long developing routes and Geno looking down the field. By this point, I would have so much more structurally built in. Even if you walked in with a game plan and Grubb in this game of saying, okay, our pass protection has been getting better. The Green Bay Packers don't rush the passer particularly well. We're going to build some more of these longer developing concepts. We're going to take some shots down the field on this football team. Even if you've got that built in, you'd still have at least the backup plan. You still have the break glass in case of emergency break glass style of change in the way you run your offensive scheme that day of going, okay, look, we were wrong. They can rush the passer a little bit. Time to pivot. And now you pivot back more into that spot of just the short passes, the quick throws, especially on the 3rd and shorts where it's makeable. But happy birthday to you, Feed Me. I thank you for the $20 donation. I'm sorry the birthday was a little bit ruined here a bit by that. But there's a couple of collection of guys as you walk into this offseason. It's a good number of them, actually. Very important decisions. And we're trying to understand what is the next thing that we're going to do to take this team to a contender mode. And that makes all of these decisions weigh that much more in. It's not just about whether or not to pay this guy who may or may not have earned his contract extension. It's about paying a guy who may or may not have earned it, who also does he or does he not fit to what we're trying to build. Is he a pure fit to what we're trying to build? And if we're paying him a significant amount of money, don't we want to make sure we've got a pure fit to what we're trying to build? I think the answer is yes. And Grubb's going to be under that microscope as well, I think, as far as how McDonald looks at him. And I think if Grubb does move on, and I'm not banging the drum necessarily for that right now, but if he does move on, you're going to go back to these kind of decisions and moments he's had in these games going, you didn't correct this. You got faced with a problem, and rather than countering that or acknowledging that problem, you just kept kind of doing your thing. And there's been moments of acknowledgement. There's been moments of adjustment. So it's not that it's been completely absent from Grubb's bag. But there's too many things that have perpetuated that have not gotten corrected. Geno Smith in the mother effing red zone. Do you understand that if I'm an offensive coordinator, I would have talked to him in week 6 in a way that would have made it very clear to Geno Smith that the red zone crap is going to stop right effing quick? Like, that's a point of emphasis from coaching to me. Unless Geno Smith just has completely a malfunction in his brain, it's my opinion that instead of actually, my absolute certainty of guess is that Grubb's made it a teaching point, brought it up, but has not locked it in. Red zone interceptions aren't happening anymore, Geno. Do you understand that? Look at me. Yeah. You're taking risks. You're not throwing for a lot of touchdowns. Are you trying to get, what are we trying to do? Or is it your incentives? You trying to get your touchdowns? You're so smart with the ball between the 20s. And then your brain falls out of your skull cap once you get inside the 20-yard line. You don't have to play like a superhero. Stop it. That's week 6 conversation. That's not week 15 conversation. And that goes back to Grubb on that. Or it's just Geno's got the fatal flaw that you can't fix that within his game, which I don't know that I fully agree or believe that, because I think that coaching, you can tell a guy like that in that moment, hey, we're in 3rd down. You literally can tell the guy in his ear set as he's coming out of the huddle. We're in 3rd and 9. We've sucked in this range. We've been bad in this range this year. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to take the check down. Just throw it to the flat, see if the guy can work something up the field and call it a day. Instead, what does he call up? A long developing route. Geno's we throw in the back of the end zone haphazardly with another one of these picks. So he's under scrutiny too here. There's no free passes on this because we're very close to being a contending team, and you've got to put everything into proper view as to where it truly stands, not in a glass half full. There's always room for optimism, and you want to look for the good and stuff, but you've got to be very certain. Not us, but the front office needs to be very certain in their outlook and view of these players and this team and where it's going to get them up over this hump. Or we are potentially then looking at the true reality potentially of being stuck in that in-between phase of things. Not quite good enough to be a contender, not quite bad enough to be down and able to go get those guys that are true difference makers to help then take you to the promised land. Rexus, thank you for subscribing to the channel, Rexus. I really thank you for doing that. Folks, please do hit that like button if you could for me today on the channel tonight. Helps me show up on those people who are trying to look tonight in the middle of the night. They've got tears flowing. They're sad Seahawks fans, and they're trying to understand why this loss happened, why we're where we're at. You can help them find some peace tonight by hitting that like button, subscribing up like Rexus. We're right on the road to almost within 1,000 of that 24-hour stream. We're knocking on the door to a 24-hour stream for St. Jude's right around Christmas. This would be really cool if we could do this. So please do join Rexus and sub on up if you could for me, please. And hit that like button. Lucky 1487. Thank you for the $2 donation. What are your thoughts on signing Sam Darnold? It's grown on me. There's a part of me as it's grown on me that makes me feel like it's a tumor. It's not a tumor. No, it's maybe a tumor. No, it's not a tumor. He's a good quarterback. I don't know if he's a good quarterback. He's okay, Arnold. But I mean, you want him. He'll get you to the chopper. Oh. Feels like one of those little gross and Mad Max where, the guys are all in white and they all got the nuclear radiation growing off them, and they like paint little faces on them. That's what it feels like when I think about Sam Darnold as the quarterback of the future here. I don't like it, but I gotta be. I always ask for this, and I am this way, and this is where it's the hard thing to do on takes as a football fan, and you just gotta aspire to get it right. You're going to be right and wrong on guys. You try to aspire to get it right, and so you always got to take into with the new data what's going on. And there's no denying with Sam Darnold this year that he has had a really good year. Having Jefferson and Addison very helpful, and TJ Hawkinson mixed in there when he's healthy. Yeah, it's definitely a boon. We saw that for Kirk Cousins versus where he's at and how he's playing right now with the Vikings. Lesser offensive talent, doesn't have a Kevin O'Connell guy to really get you in that right spot of things. Sam Darnold is also significantly younger than Geno Smith. What is Sam Darnold going to cost? Lucky, that's first and foremost. What's Geno going to cost? I think that they're probably very similar as players when it's all said and done, but Geno's older. Do I want to spend $40 million for Sam Darnold? No, I do not. But is that probably the bare minimum that he can probably hope to expect on the open market? Yes, it probably is. I think we see the Raiders and Giants locking in around those two rookies at the top of the draft. That's still going to leave quite a few teams that probably would like to find some quarterback help who will be willing to probably pay Sam Darnold at that point. If he came in on a low deal, you're looking to pivot off. If you're looking to pivot off Geno, lucky. You're running it back with Sam, and then you don't really like the quarterback options in the draft, and there's not another ready-made trade to be had. It's not the worst of possible results versus what I think at this point looks like the worst of possible results to me on this is that you would run back with Sam Howell. You try to go pick a guy in the second or third round late, and then that's what you're trying to run out at the quarterback position into the future. That's the worst thing. So, there's some potential to that move. I can see and understand where if you find him on the right contract where it doesn't cost you a ton and you can really build up the team around him, Sam's has developed. And you can't deny that he's developed really nicely there for the Vikings in this season, really being given now his, as far as a true second chance. I know he's gotten a second chance at Carolina technically, but let's face it, given a true second chance at a place where he can succeed, where he was drafted with the Jets, the Panthers, the stops that he's had, he didn't have really a chance there to do anything with the Niners. He's not had that real true second opportunity, and here he has it and he's made the most of it. And, yeah, I'd get it. I'd get it lucky. Something about him I've just never really liked. I'm probably prejudicial with him. Unfairly so, probably. I'm trying. Radu Turkan. Thank you for the $10 donation, Radu. Very kind of you, brother. Good to see you in the house. A Bulls-esque game from the 12th man crowd. Let me just give you an example. Critical third down stop on the line. The lady in front of me was on Facebook and was not in the game at all while I'm screaming. Saw a shot on Twitter of the Green Bay section just completely overflowing with Green Bay fans. So despite the best attempts from those folks out there to stop this from happening, it was not stopped from happening. And that's unfortunate to hear from yourself as a person that was in the crowd, saw it in person, and felt that there was a lack of that energy where you go, man, you're on prime time. You're at the end of the year. You're in first place. All of the excuses that get thrown in my face when I call upon the 12s to be louder, to understand the tradition, to recognize the tradition and recognize that in that tradition, it takes everybody in that stadium to get you to the place where you can affect the game in the way that you need to affect it. Not 70% of the stadium, not 67% of the stadium. And they throw at me all these excuses, Radu. Well, if the defense got more stops. Well, if they give you more reason to root for them. Well, you're in first place. We're walking this game. So if the energy wasn't there like that, and there was really hard to see very many moments in this game where Green Bay looked bothered by the crowd, including I think they even tried. They had a couple of moments where they were feeling brazen enough to even hard count us. That's very ballsy. So tough to hear, Radu. I think that there's definitely an opening here for, at this point, the ownership to take a long look at the situation and maybe start to think about if there's some things that they can do, if not to solve it, to at least make it harder for the stadium to get taken over by the opposition. I know that there's nothing you can do about making people scream or not. I think people are just lazy in this day and age, quite frankly, and they just want to go in there and be distracted and do nothing and not participate, and that's just the new, that's my instinct on this, Radu, is that that's just the new way. And that old heads like me can bitch and moan about it, but there ain't nothing you can do about it because that's the direction it's headed. But disappointing to hear, Radu. I'm glad you did all you could, man. I know you would. And hopefully the ownership tries to look at this and tries to think about some options here to get this thing figured out. Because it sucks. Feed me, thank you, Radu, for that $10 donation, man. Feed me more Seahawks. Thanks for the $2 dono. Where were the halftime adjustments from Grubb? I don't know. Seemed like the plan of attack today was we're going to go down the field. They did a little bit more of targeting. I suppose there was a little more targeting of the middle of the field a tiny bit as the game went along, but they didn't really stay committed to it. Seemed like there was just more of that draw, as there always is when this offense goes wrong. There's too much of a preoccupation with trying to push the ball down the field and attack with chunk plays, rather than just taking what defenses give you. That's my instinct on it, but you bailed out of the run game on this one pretty early too. Maybe you had to a little bit because you got down in the game by so much to a degree, but there weren't much at best case. JRD243, thank you for the $2 donation. Should have kept horsecock lock. Maybe so. Maybe the Drew man's the answer. Who knows, Who knows, JRD? Maybe they bring him back this offseason. I think he's only on a 1-year deal there with the Giants. Radu, thanks for the $5. Appreciate the double dip donation. Overall, I think the defense played a winnable game besides the first quarter. Offense and Sam Howell got to back their bag after this game. What a snooze fest. Yeah, you're not going to shut down a Green Bay offense. It's a very good offense. They were going to get their share of points here and there in this game. This wasn't going to be a 16, 17-point game at home. The offense was going to have to carry its share of the load, and they did not do that. And that's the place where I do think the defense found some adjustments. The defense found an ability to shore up the run game stops, to get into more of some 3rd and longs, I think, into that second half. But the offense had no answers for this Packer defense. They made that Packer defense look like a top 5 defense. And it's hard to understand what the plan exactly was, what they were trying to do. You had some featuring of JSN really nice early on, but just not a lot of creativity. Not a lot of staying with the run game. Disappointing. So yeah, it was a brutal game. I can only imagine how tough it would have been to be in person on that. Radu, it's another one of those games like we've had this year, be it the Lions game or the Buffalo Bills game, for first 49ers game. You're 12 minutes in the fourth quarter, and you're like, let's wrap this one up. I think I've seen enough. And it's very rare to be in football games like that, especially even for this team that has had so many fourth quarter comeback success stories. It's just that bad of a football game. It was just that bad. And Sam Howell was brutal to watch, Radu. I don't know if in person it was as bad as it looked on TV, but that was horrible. Horrible. Zach, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. Appreciate you for doing that. Members of the channel, keep an eye, please. You do as well, Zach. Keep an eye on your community posts. That's where I do post the membership benefits. So Monday morning, or Monday, it's usually midday because I don't get to bed till about 5 in the morning at night. But Monday, we'll be getting out the PFF scores to you guys. Thursday, we got the Thursday night football stream for members only, doing the Thursday night game. And then we've got a call-in stream at the end of the month, every month. So for members, you want to call in, have a talk with me directly. So I really look forward to doing those. But Zach, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. I really appreciate you for that. Welcome aboard the Hawks Nest. Hand Grenade, thank you for becoming a member of the Hawks Nest as well. Jake's going to be so insufferable on the Roundtable Tuesday. I can see him writing his monologue as we speak. Jake's going to definitely be feeling himself, and they've earned that right. They're rounding into shape, and as bad as that Niner game was against on Thursday night, he's got the excuse, which is a right one. I think there was a lot of rain in that game. It was tough conditions. Both offenses were impaired in their ability to do what they want to get done in the game. I'm not going to push back on that. That's right, and so he's got his right to crow. And I can only push back so much, especially with how we looked. Ugh. Strike says the Brandon Perna curse wheel failed us. Of course, it fails us when it goes in the other direction. It doesn't fail us when it lands on our shoulders. But of course, slides off the other way, doesn't it? Stupid curse wheel, stupid Perna. Curse wheels are dumb. Addicted? How's it going, man? It sounds like the structural stuff on Geno's knee is okay, but I think you're still probably not going to see him back next week at least. I'd be surprised if he plays. Zorn says one win versus a team with a winning record explains plenty about this season. It does. Some of even your good earlier season wins against like an Atlanta team, not looking as good in retrospect as they fall away too, to your point. Yeah, happy birthday, Feed Me. Thank you again for that $20 donation, but I hope you have a happy birthday, man. BP says, and it's the last game at home, the team will show out. Hopefully they do next week. I like the confidence, BP. Let's go. John Naylor says, Brando, well, Christopher Walken needs more cowbell, aka running game. Walken has a fever that can only be cured by more cowbell running game. That's right. Charbonnet gap ran it early this game, John. Early gap run. Success. Then no more gap. John, I need my cowbell and I need my gap runs. Lucas Toa La Maya. I need them both. Pulling. Space. Motion. Movement. Now. Playlist Trav, Woolen is too streaky. He has great moments, but also very bad. Do not give him the big contract and trade him. I think we are going to find some uniformity here on the Woolen situation. And I do like him, but I find myself leaning in a bit of this direction. Fun Piece says, Reek played bad. How do people have eyes? Because refs throw flags doesn't mean he's S. Nope. I don't think he's S. Definitely don't want to overstate something like that in the way. He's not a bad player. Not a bad player. Can we trade John Schneider for O-line? What's up, Paul? It's good to see you in the house, man. Denzel says, no joke at all. What can we do to get a reevaluation of season ticket holders? I am more pissed at the fans than the team. Hearing Go Pack Go seriously threw me into the worst mood. It maddens me to no end as well, Denzel. And I've tried to post some videos on my channel and the Clips channel begging Hawk fans to kind of take note of this. And I think that there's even people in the background of this game trying to get out ahead of some of the season ticket holders selling the tickets. The first thing that I think that stands out, which would be an easy one on this one, is that you no longer allow season ticket holders to sell their tickets. And what happens here is that there's no silver bullet to this situation, Denzel, and that you're going to have like 4 things you do that clean this up entirely. But there are some things that you can do to make this not such a mess. And you have a situation with the season ticket holders where season ticket holders buy those season tickets. They buy them every year, partly because they know they can sell whatever little collection that they want to sell for the profit to then fund next year's season ticket buy. And the profit that they get are tickets that then are sold to people who then fill the stadium up who are not Seahawks fans. So this then goes one hand washing the other, though, because then more certainty is there on the season tickets. More season tickets get sold. More season tickets consistently get charted up by the year because those people see the profit motive within it and doing it. It's not about their fandom at that point. It's about, doesn't really come out of pocket for me to go see games in the stadium. I end up not having to spend anything. But I don't get to go to a certain collection of games. I have a certain collection of games where we're going to allow these fans to fill in there. And there's enough people making that decision by and large. That's the first problem to me at the front of this. But that's also the easiest point to correct. Hey, don't get to sell your season ticket fan. You don't get to sell your tickets anymore. Your tickets are going to be your tickets. And this is where that's going to be hard to enforce that. I'm sure the NFL doesn't want to do that because now you'll have less season tickets sold. Now you'll have retention there. And part of having so many of these season tickets being sold and having that you can count on every week that this is how much will be packed in the house and then we'll sell this very many from the gates is now you can keep jacking up the ticket prices, which is the second part of this process because your wine and cheese crowd that's now entered the stadium versus the riffraff of those middle-class blue-collar people sees the stadium having people like Radu was talking about above on their Facebook phone looking at Facebook. That's probably some affluent person who can't be bothered. Versus you give me somebody driving up from Marysville, small people are going to go there with their kids. That lady sitting in that seat versus that guy, or that lady coming from Marysville, you get the combination of the two. And there's only so much of this you can do about it. But high ticket prices and then allowing these season ticket holders to use this as some sort of capitalistic game that they can go off the back of. I think that's kind of, to me, Denzel, some of the first places you can do to work to address this. If they just let us throw tomatoes to it, anybody that wears I don't understand how you can't throw anything with any batteries in, but we get to throw tomatoes at anybody wearing the opposition's colors in the stadium. I think we're stuck though, Denzel. I think it's like Brian says, you're probably stuck. Fun says, if you give the Seahawks 200 penalty yards like the refs did, the Packers, we win welcome to the NFL. It's entertainment. They came knowing they needed to guarantee the Packers to get in the playoff card. Yeah, I think we definitely didn't necessarily show up either here. James, if Olotimi's gone for the year, we might as well start Howell and hope Jenk doesn't get hurt effing next year. Geno doesn't get hurt next year. Maybe so. Maybe so. Stoyan says, I don't understand people, B. Why is it important for Geno to be better than Purdy? In my opinion, Geno needs to be good enough for Super Bowl, and with his decision-making in the red zone, it's not. This is on him. Yeah, I don't think the question is at all in relation to Purdy or what's going on with Purdy. That's a separate conversation. I was only saying that about San Francisco for the fact that they would, I think that he's had some limitations to them and what he's brought too on what he's brought as a benefit. But yeah, the red zone issues, Stoyan, are notable with Geno. It's happened too much. It has reached the point where you wonder if it is correctable, as it has to have been a point of emphasis at this point. It's really it's not hard, it's impossible to excuse it. And, if that's at the forefront of some of what you have on the bad, even if you have a lot of good you bring, if your fatal flaw is one that can sink us on the day, is one that can collapse the whole kind of structure itself, even though there's all this other good stuff there. And it makes the choice and decision a little bit harder there, Stoyan. Tough part is a bit in the day you get with that here too, where he's 15 and 19, 149 yards. It really comes down to that one throw, mainly, that you sit there and go, oof, but it's a bad throw. Tommy says, 9 stages of grief. I went straight to anger. How embarrassing. John Schneider needs to be held accountable at some point. Go, Pack, go. That S will never fly in the pre-Lumen Field. Shameful. It's wild to see, man. Wouldn't have happened in the 80s. Wouldn't have happened, I don't even think, in the darkness of the 90s. But this is where it's at now. Stoyan says, I know offensive line is bad, but that's not an excuse to throw the ball this bad. I have enough sample size that he's not good enough when the offensive line held up Woolen on the chopping block too. It's fair enough. I know others will be at that point of the assessment, Stoyan. Craze says, well, no matter what, this O-line has to be the main focus. It's single-handedly holding this offense back, I believe. And I think that this is Geno's last year. He cost too much for his output. I think the cost could end up outweigh all of this overall on Geno's point. To your point, that's very smartly put by you, Craze. And the offensive line is one that this has got to be looked at as almost kind of what I want John to do is treat the offensive line like we have a nuclear fallout situation. What is that? The 9 Mile Island, the one they made the movie about with Russell, right? Jack Lemmon, I think, in the movie at that as well. They've got the nuclear meltdown of the facility. Okay. All of those steps you got to take now we got to take. Like Russia did with Chernobyl. I need people dumping concrete. I need hydrogen layer built beneath the reactor so we don't get it to the water source and that explodes. All hands on deck to get this issue resolved. And that means not just trust the process in the draft, take a couple guys and call it a day. Free agency, trade, draft. Utilize every means at your disposal to turn this significantly around because it is holding everything else back at this point. Really is. WZ says the throws to Noah Fant in the flat were working so well in short yardage. 3rd downs last week, not a single one this week. Yeah. They don't commit to those throws, yet those throws are open. I thought there was one in this game early on where Geno's staring down to A.J. Barner in the flat, same kind of route. He looks wide open. Geno's staring right at him. For some reason, ends up holding onto the ball, and I think he takes a sack on the play. Don't get it. Zach says, I'm good on Darnold. I think I'd rather keep Geno. Fun P says, could have had him for a couple of million last year, but everybody laughed a year ago. Yeah. He hadn't really given you this kind of performance on tape either, though, from Sam Darnold's perspective. And he had bounced through a few different teams without really finding that landing spot, which is usually kind of an indicator there, too, for most guys. But he's finding his footing this year. Props to him on that. Talks of treasure. Look, this is Mike Mack's first year, and he'll get it right in time. But Grubb has to step up and show up, and this flip-flopping between half contention and not is old. Agreed with you on that, man. Talks. Much more like to see this team either, firing and getting this thing shot forward for contention, or turn it all over and let's go and do it all properly from the start. Pull it down to whatever you got to do there, but make the choice on where you want to drive this thing. Middle of the road ain't good enough. And being sort of just, slightly better than average is definitely, I'm a bit tired of it too. But Grubb is mixed bag this year from Grubb. You want to give him a lot of room for being a new offensive coordinator in the NFL coming from college, and especially with the offensive line. And there's some explanations to be had there. But there's also some stuff that's really disconcerting in the way that he's calling it. Tommy says Grubb did not call a Hail Mary from the red zone under pressure. Geno did. This is a fair point, Tommy, and I'm not excusing Geno's interception there at all. But this is also a little bit of where it's bad on Geno, but then there is a bad back to Grubb. Not to give Geno less blame on the play, Tommy. Blame well ascribed. Put it on his back there. That's an inexcusable throw. But from a Grubb standpoint, you have a quarterback that's had this propensity this year many times over down the red zone to make those kind of plays. You're in a 3rd and 9. You're not going to complete. You're not going to convert that. It's not going to happen. Track record that year, Geno's decision-making down there that year. So instead of calling just a quick throw, I was screaming for just run a drag to DK. Throw it to DK there, let him run the drag, see what happens. Throw it out to the flat to the running back, see what happens. Have the running back run in front of Geno, throw it down as a check down, call it a day. Is it taking a bit of an L in that moment just to take the field goal? Yeah. But it's also, as a coach, smartly understanding what you do and what you do not have on your team, where you might have a player who has a weakness that's been there this year that you have to kind of work around a little bit. And that's where I think that there's validity behind putting a little bit to Grubb as well in that moment with that play call. You're not going to convert that 3rd and 9 with those long developing routes. It's not happening. Brian says they don't want Purdy. They just don't want Darnold. They just don't want Purdy getting market value. Love, $55 million. Dak, $60 million. That's the market. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Metal Dragon, I'm not sure Darnold can replicate what he's doing here in Seattle. 1 year of production is not much of a track record either. Agreed. Yeah. It certainly would not be this would not be any of one of my number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, options. This would be a begrudging if it had to be. I'd probably, somebody else at above, probably be driven a little bit more to Geno, but if the team took the approach, I could understand a little, I guess, why. James says, I like Grubb. Problem is, he's still looking for plays they can execute, but with O-line, they can't do anything. Some teams pass block well, others run block well. These guys can't do either. It's true. It's a limiting factor. That's for sure. Craig says, what about Malik Willis? I'd be hesitant on that one myself. I'm not a big Malik guy, but it's a little bit like Darnold. They're just some of that back traces to my opinion on them coming out of college. Tommy says, Darnold would look like ass on this roster, and it wouldn't be his fault. Very possible. Craze, Trey Lance, I'm definitely another guy. I was on the other scale of it where I liked him a lot coming out, but another guy that you look at, and you can't deny the fact when Cowboys are going to Cooper Rush instead of Trey Lance, one stack went down. It's a bit of an indicator of where Trey is on his development. I don't know if any of these guys are an answer. If we're talking about looking for an answer versus just looking for a placeholder or somebody to keep a seat warm. And if we're just going into next year to keep a seat warm in our situation at the quarterback position, then that does need to inform you on, in my opinion, moving more into a rebuild, which is not where I thought we'd be a couple weeks ago. But if that's going to be the decision this is going to twist to, then I'd be much more in favor of that versus going for the mid quarterback who's not going to give you anything. And I am a hard no on Rusty as well. Rust, I don't think it doesn't make sense him coming back. Remember too, he left with animosity there with the whole situation between him and John Schneider and all that. Denzel says, no joke at all. What can we do to reevaluate? Sorry, I read that. Yeah, I just don't think there's anything we can do, Denzel. We're stuck. We're stuck. James is part of the Germany. AC Journey, thank you for the $2 donation. Sorry, a little late acknowledging. For a primetime game, we didn't look ready. No. This team over the last 2 years has had some shocking games to me that have kind of blown me away in looking at the games and not understanding. And it's not that it's every game. It's not that it's not that it happens over a collection of like a trend of a behavior, but there's been some literally, to me, AC Journey jaw-dropping games. The Rams game, opening week last year, opening game of the season, at home. Taking on a Rams team that you know is good, that they're going to step up, that you got to bring your A game. And you got outclassed that day. The players, the coaches themselves, we weren't ready to play. Not ready to play in the opening game of the season at home? At home? Final game of the year last year against the Cardinals. Playoffs on the line. Cardinals pretty much booted that game at the end just so that they could get their draft pick up high. Your team didn't look ready to play, and then they're out there smoking cigars in the locker room post. This year, the Detroit Lions game, the San Francisco game at home, the Buffalo Bill game at home, this game, not ready to play. I think you're right in your assessment. You're not the only person to say it. I think it as well. Many have said in my chat during the live stream show, we did not look ready to go. And it boggles your mind. It's one thing to get beat on a football field. Well, they got us. Wasn't our number today. You know? We gave it a good fight. We were battling out. It's another thing to where you just, as I say, basically had this game lost with about 5 minutes to go in the first quarter. Where you could see that you had no fight to give. You had no answers to call upon. And hard to make sense of that. JRD, thank you for the $5 donation. Very kind of you, JRD, for the double donation. Brandon, if Geno is out for a few weeks, we might need you to get the arm loose and get out there. I'm sure you wouldn't be much worse than Howell. I was going to say this earlier. I didn't want to get on my horse, but I'll tell you this. I'll hit a check down. You ain't going to have to wonder if I can throw a 5-yard effing check down route. You aren't going to wonder about that. I don't know if I can push it past 15, 16 yards down the field, but I throw with a heavy amount of anticipation and touch. I'm a layer thrower. The footwork in the pocket is like a dancer. Who's the Russian ballerina guy? Like, that's what they would call me. That's like how I would move in the pocket. Just like, I got a hose, man. I got a hose. I ain't gonna play scared. Al came out there playing scared. Knees knocking, hands shaking. I got him, JRD. And all they gotta do is make the call. I'll be out there. I guarantee this, I ain't throwing no red zone pick either. I ain't going to throw some off foot, back foot throw into a sea of hands in the back of the end zone 6 seconds after the play started. No. Paul Third, thank you for the $2 donation, says, what does everyone think the defense is missing? I saw Radu, your donation too. Sorry, I'll get your donation there in a second. I don't know if there's a uniform opinion on this one, Paul. I think that more beef up front, a nose tackle, if you're looking for maybe a close to consensus answer on this, a nose tackle or multiple nose tackles up front, big bodies up front that, can prevent some of those A gap runs we saw today, B gap runs we saw today, where you're getting pushed off the line, somebody that can just take up space, take up blockers, and allow your linebackers to just run free and wild. So I guess that would be the main part, but there might be some difference of opinion. There might be some people out there that'll tell you, Paul, we need to get a difference-making edge. Edges are just good enough. We need to go make a run at a guy like a Micah or a Myles Garrett kind of type if you can go find that guy, if that kind of trade is available. I think the outside corner position is going to be one that's also in discussion here now, more so than maybe we even thought a couple weeks ago. And we have Job going to be fine. Is Woolen a fine guy out there? Do we need to do more in addressing out there? But I think nose tackle would be the one position, Paul, people would go to by and large and say that's first and foremost can be something that can be upgraded. Hankins has had some moments this year in some games that he's been pretty decent. He's had some games he's been pretty bad. And I'm going to guess that he's not going to be particularly well graded coming out of this game. It's another bad game probably from him. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the donation. Radu with another dono. Thank you for the $5, Radu. Substitute issues, I think, were a problem. Many times guys ran from the huddle to sideline, then turned around because they realized they're not supposed to. That's a bit of, I guess, within this, Radu, the unprepared angle of it, right? And you saw it's little details of stuff. Nobody knows who's supposed to be on the field. Like we're week 15 of the season here, and you don't know who's supposed to be on the field, what for when formation. That kind of feels like, did everybody prep up during the week then? And Radu, you're seeing this, of course, from, just to remind people on your perspective of this, you're seeing this from within the stadium, not on TV. You're seeing those players. And of course, on TV, we don't often get to see that shot where you're getting to see the players scrambling. And there was a couple times we actually got to see in this game of them. We had to call a timeout at one point because guys were trying to scramble to get off the football field. But that's part of, there's so much evidence in this game from how you're, backup walked out there to how your game plan was structured, offensive play style, to you have Josh Jacobs, who's the focal point and the centerpiece of what you need to do to stop this Packers team coming into this. And on all of these accounts, you were prepared to take care of. None of these things you were well aware about coming into it that you needed to deal with. But then you have just these weird other moments too, where just brain dead kind of brain fart moments of you don't know who's supposed to be out on what formation. You got Woolen unaware on a 10 seconds to go at the end of the second half. And that throw, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be attacking you with some vertical routes on that play to try to see if they can go sneak a touchdown at the end of half. We did this a few weeks ago, didn't we? DK Metcalf, remember against the Falcons at the end of half where he runs the out and up route to the middle of the field? This is what you're going to do as an offense at that moment. You've got one play. So you're going to go take your shot on the play, but yet he's trailing on the play like he's unaware of the fact they're going to run the 9 on him there. Tyler Lockett a little bit over his skis on getting himself set on a particular play on the offensive side of the ball for a pre-snap penalty. Like he doesn't get himself in alignment there. It's just a little details, little things where your team as a whole across the board, some parts, maybe go, well, the defense maybe play a little bit better than the offense or one or the other, but they weren't ready to go. And that's where all of these little points of proof do point to, Radu, and hard to understand why. With this much on the line, with you in first place, why this team at this time of year, week 5, okay. Week 7, still finding our way, okay. But first place, all brought on the line like it is, you at home, harder to excuse, harder to understand. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation. Can't watch 3 weeks of Sammy Boy. And he's got a vomit emoji. I'm going to have a hard time watching that as well. That was on a whole nother level of bad. That's some of the worst backup play that I've seen. And that's saying something. That's Charlie Whitehurst level of bad. It's fitting that Sam's got the beard. He might be our new clipboard Jesus. We ain't getting in the playoffs if Sam Howell's quarterback for the next 3 games. We're probably not getting in the playoffs if he's the next quarterback for the next 2 weeks, quite frankly. I am a man of little faith on that one. Oh, John Naylor just stole my line. John, I did not see your donation before I just said that. I swear to God. I did not see your donation. I just was saying it. Maybe I peripherally and it just came in my business. John with the $2 donation says, Brando, Clipboard Jesus asks, miss me yet? Yeah. Maybe it is time to make a call back to Charlie Whitehurst or Matt Flynn. Maybe we got to make a call here, John. And that was kind of like that. We had Charlie came in on 1 week against a bad Browns team, I remember back in the day, and I think he managed on the road 6 points. It's about that kind of performance and what we saw today from Sam. Yeek. Yay. Call up Charlie, though. Let's see what he's doing. Jeffrey, hey, Thistle, thank you for the $10 donation and all of your support to the channel as a member as well. There should be no throws over 20 yards in the playbook given our current offensive line. This isn't rocket science. You got 2 seconds. Anything that takes more time than that, throw it in the trash. Drives me nuts. Yep, it's the biggest, I think, flaw with Grubb as far as maybe beyond anything else here. And there's some things that I have as far as issues as well on top of this. But he's coaching to the team he wants rather than the team he has. And you have to coach to the team you have at this point in time of the year. You can develop some things, you can keep working things to eventually have it mature and eventually it kind of takes root and kind of, okay, we got this concept down. We sucked it in week 2, we sucked it in week 6, but bam, 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 we get it going through. But you're not making the offensive line better at pass protection at this point. You spun through everybody. You're giving everybody a try. They've all had a shot. Your line is what it is at this point. It ain't getting any better anytime soon. So with that being said, you have to operate with a little bit of restrictions as an offensive play caller at that point, which really shouldn't be as limiting as Grubb has made it seem, Jeffrey, considering the fact that he is a spread concept guy conceptually. And inherently, in the core of a spread foundation is going to be the short passing attack, i.e., getting the ball out of the quarterback's hand really fast, i.e., overcoming that lack of pass protection because those guys rushing the passer don't have the time to get to the quarterback because the ball is out of the quarterback's hand too quick. But that is not the adjustment you're seeing him make by and large. He'll work it in a little bit. It's like a guy eating his vegetables. I guess I'll do it begrudgingly, but he's holding his nose, he's not chewing the bite, and he's swallowing it down. And he's just trying to get back to the meat, back to his deep shots. I think that that's definitely a place where there's more of that room for that adjustment to be built in here, Jeffrey, from his standpoint of it. We'll see if he starts to make that adjustment. What it seems like he does instead of that is he goes, okay, I can't run my spread stuff to the depth. So what I'll do instead is I'll draw my tight end and my running back in, and then I'll still run to depth with my 3 receivers on the outside. So then Geno or Sam in this case will have no outlet options. And it's either on those guys getting deep, running through to double coverage and bracket coverage or not. Tough sailing at that point. Yeah, it drives me a bit crazy too, Jeffrey. You can't coach to what you hope you have. You got to coach to what you do have, especially to this depth of this point of the season. It's not changing from where it's been. And maybe he was just, Jeffrey, overwhelmed so much by the past 2 weeks, or these last 2 games, the pass protection has had such good, bright moments where Geno's back there and he's got 5, 6, 7 seconds to sit back there and kind of assess what he wants to do. But that's been an outlier on this year. And part of that was, of course, like you playing the Cardinal team, you're dealing with a team that just does not have any kind of pass rushers to really challenge you. Mark Sanchez, thank you for the $5 donation. If Dable is released, do we get him and move on from Grubb? Thoughts? I'm really torn. I'll say that. I'm really torn on this, Mark. And the reason being is that I want to give this the year with Grubb, but we are winding down to that point. I do feel like a lot with Geno Smith here, Mark. Grubb is very much impacted by this offensive line and him running the scheme. You know, you bring a guy in to run a scheme and you don't give him the tools to be able to run his scheme. I'm just saying it below here to Jeffrey. You know, you're right now having to adjust what you run as far as your playbook because of how bad your personnel is. Not because you need to lean into their strengths, but because you need to overcome how bad they are. And it's very hard to hire a man and say, hey, we like this and that and this and that and that, what you do in your offense. And, oh, that's really cool with what you do. And he's like, yeah, I do some cool things. And you do this over here. And he's like, yeah, I do that too. And then you hire that guy in, and then you're having him tear out whole swaths of his playbook. And then when he's not successful, having torn out whole swaths of his playbook, you wag a finger at him and you hand him a pink slip. I've continually gone back on my mind on that of saying that's a tough conclusion to reach. But I can't also deny that it may be the proper one, especially to the point of your question about Dable. If there is a guy that you feel is more certain to be a sure thing, that there's less of this, hey, the upside on this guy, because that's what Grubb is. He's in, hey, the upside on this offensive coordinator. His upside is getting to a Ben Johnson-like state if he can roll. But unlike Ben Johnson, when he walked in the Detroit Lions, he's not being handed a really quality offensive lineman to make his scheme work. So I'm very torn here, Mark, and I don't have a sure answer for you as much as I'd like here, because it's very hard for me to fully throw the weight of failure on Grubb's doorstep saying, you were bad. And you did hire him with his playbook to do a certain thing. Like the deep shots within his playbook are part of the DNA. He's not coming up with this out of the ether. This is who he is inherently and how he wants to run his offense. It's spread concepts with deep shots. And if you take the deep shots out, you're making him change his identity offensively and how he runs it. And that's not necessarily his fault. But I'm torn, Mark. I'm torn like hell on this one. Alex Marin. Sorry, Alex. Thank you for the $5 donation. Imagine calling a play in the huddle, but in walking. 46, double right, 8 cross, bingo, action, double claw on 2. Charles, look at me, cross now. You give me hit again, sucker. I'm going to punch you in the face. Stop. Toa, Lamar, where you at? Look at me now. You let him hit you again. That spin move. I'm going to plant my foot up your ass so deep. It's going to disappear forever. I'm going to pull it out again. My bones, they hurt. You're hurting me. You're hurting me bad. No more, please. Ow. It hurts. Stop. He'd be calling the play, but it would quickly turn into a bitch session about how much the offensive line's getting him hit, Alex. That's just the way Walken rolls. He's not going to be able to look past that. Not built that way. Block, you SOBs. I got my bones sticking out of my skin. What are you doing to me? Promise, thank you for the 13 months as a Hawks Nest member. Over a year, thank you for that. So what exactly did they tell Sam to do tonight? Well, I can tell you what I would have told them tonight going in, promise. But I would say, to your point, I think it's built within your question. I don't think they said these things to him. Hey, Sam, you're going into the game. You're going to have to make some throws here, buddy. You're not going to be able to just hit the check down city there. All right, I'm going to start checking it down then from the moment. Okay. I know he threw the ball down the field eventually there on the interception, but all the rest of the throws were just him just throwing little, little desperate throws. So they didn't tell him that. I would have also been in his ear saying, hey, Sam, yeah, what's up, coach? You're going to need to use your legs, okay? First drop back, I'm going to do a roll option. I would have gotten him a quick throw and quick completion, but absent that, I would have gotten him and said, second, third attempt, I want you to drop back. You're going to use your legs and you're going to let it loose. I want you back there scrambling and running. They're flying around with their pass rush. They're out of control in their gap integrity. Climb up the pocket and go run. Know it from the start when you snap the ball. I want you to go 1,000, 2, 1,000, and scramble. They didn't do that. I don't know. I don't know what they told him. But those would have been the things I would have told him. Let it rip, kid. I would have told him that from the start. The interception sucks, but it sucks coming on the heels of him walking in initially and playing so safe. And then the second he pushes a little bit out of that safe failure point, and it was failing him playing safe, then he just ultimately fails even beyond that. But I don't know, man. Eric Michelet, thank you for the $2 donation. Season over. It was fun while it lasted. Hey, it's been a hell of a season. It's been a hell of a ride. And there's been a lot of twists and turns on this, and this very well may be where we kind of see the end of the season hit on the end of a road for this point. But it was a year without a lot of expectation. Vegas has it 7.5 wins. A new coach coming in. A lot to, I think, fix and get rectified here. This was no easy job here McDonald was walking into. Was there a lot of talent for him to work off of that isn't as typical for most coaches coming into a new situation like that? Sure. But there was a lot to clean up as well. And it's been a successful year. It's been a good year, Eric. But you might have hit the end of the point here. You might have run out of gas here at this point. We're not done. We still got fight to fight. Fat lady ain't sung yet. But I can understand having a little bit of that outlook coming off the back of this game, especially as embarrassed as you were in this game. Eric says the offensive line is trash. Geno, mistakes, no run game. Well, thank you for another $2 donation. And yep, starts with the offensive line. Geno, that interception. You played a pretty good game around that, but it's the word I keep coming back to is inexcusable, Eric. It's inexcusable. There's no finding some spot where I can explain it away. You've had many times this year to correct this mistake, and you keep making the same mistake. And that's where we come back to, is that a fatal flaw? And yeah, no run game. Again, a game where you, by getting behind two, it allowed Grubb to lean into his worst habits, which are at times to lean away from the run game or only run the ball begrudgingly. And that's the way that this kind of went in this one too. Keon Lund, thank you for the $5 donation. Keon, as well, again, be a member of the channel too. Thank you for all that support. Don't want to be that guy, but this fan base's energy tonight wasn't good for such a pivotal game. Went to 90% of home games from 2012 to 18. Tough. Yikes. It's been the suspicions of me for a while now here, Keon. Of course, we talked a lot about it leading into the season here about some of what we were feeling from the stadium recently. And tonight is perhaps, I think, the Buffalo Bill game as well. Keon is one that stands out in some of the reports I was hearing. And I, of course, doing this show as we do hours for post-game discussion here, a lot of fans who have been in the stadium. So this isn't me just coming from what is a casual opinion, but something that I hear a lot as much as any person that's connected to this and the fan base's opinion of this and their reports back on this and what they're seeing in the stadium. And that the stadium has lost its juice. It's lost its mojo. You had at one time a Seattle Seahawks fan base that was not only a special fan base for the NFL, but was a special fan base for sports, period. You caused earthquakes and you set Guinness World Book records. But whatever, to me, BS, lazy, dumb, I want to operate by my own set of new rules in my fandom versus who came prior to me, excuses that people want to apply. And I think of it in that, really, I do. The people that come out and will say, well, we'll do, I need everything to be right and perfect for me to then do that being loud thing. I need to be, if I'm going to be asked to, then they need to give me then if I'm going to be doing it, then if I'm going to have to pay these prices, then, this sort of bitch and moan, push and pull on the situation, I don't like it at all. Because again, it's the new standard. Even people, well, they'll got to give me a reason. Well, if they stop allowing so many third downs, will they actually, go win a playoff game? And that mindset, it is out there, and I see it, and I'm faced with it very often, Keon, very often, I'm faced with it. I'm sure I'm going to see it even tonight on the chat. That's a new mindset. That's new. Your 1979 Seattle Seahawks fan that came into that kingdom that was very happy to have a franchise. They didn't have that mindset. The fan that walked in that stadium in 1984, 1985, they didn't have that mindset. The fan that walked in there in 1992, 2-14 team. I can go show you home games from that 2-14 season. It's going to be loud. They didn't have that mindset. Your Holmgren 2000 eras. Were those Hawk fans like that? No. They knew what time it was. Obviously, through the Carroll era, Beastquake, Guinness World Book of Record. So you have a trail of 50 years. But now we suddenly get to this current generation and crop of fans, and, there's reasons. There's reasons. They don't like to be called out on it. They don't be like, you see no one, but it's silly. It really is, because there's this special thing. It's not about you doing work on a Sunday. It's not about you going into the stadium and having to extend energy. It's about the synergy created in that stadium when everybody's locked in that way. And when you have everybody locked in the way, it sets the tone for the team. And when you have a team on a day like this that's lacking that energy and lacking that juice, yet in their own stadium, you come back a little bit to the crowd and you shake a little bit of a finger at them. You go, man, you guys could do better. Part of the reason that you haven't been good at home now for years on end is this mentality, this self-serving, I'm here to watch this like a movie. I spend so much money, I don't want to extend any energy out mentality. And it's destroying our home field advantage. Or it has destroyed, I guess I should say. So, if you're one of those folks that leans into that excuse, if you're one of those folks that's selling your season tickets to another opposing fan because they haven't given you reason enough to go there every week, that's weak. And you're part of what's allowing what was a proud tradition for multiple generations over to wither on the vine. So, you can keep it going and keep it pushing and keep going down this trajectory of where it's headed, but it will go away. It will be no more. And I'm sure that same person that's making all those excuses right now will take no responsibility at that point when it becomes nothing. Because I can guarantee you, I've been in that stadium many times, and every damn time I'm in that stadium, I know what time it is. I know most of you do as well. But there's a big enough contingent now that's entered into that stadium that doesn't care at all. They don't care. They don't care. T Favor, thank you for the $10 donation. I appreciate you for that. T, very kind of you, man. Why the hell, with 11 minutes plus left in the fourth, only down 10, with a backup quarterback, did we completely give up on the run and not call a single run play after just scoring on a 20-yard run? That's that part I talk about with Grubb on that worst pull that he sometimes has within him, which is to go away from the run game, to only run the ball, but begrudgingly like a guy that's being forced to eat his vegetables. And that happened in the early part of this game, T Favor. And like you say, it happened in the later part of the game when you had gotten close back enough in this game to go back to the run. There were some things working in the run game. Zach Charbonnet 8 carries, 54 yards. It wasn't illustrious, but it was good enough to at least kind of lean on a little bit. And like you say, with a backup quarterback, to take a little bit of the stress off his shoulders at that point. I don't know, but that's part of also T-Favor. I think the valid criticism that's then put on Grubb with this, where it's, okay, here's an issue that's been a problem throughout the year. Where has been the adjustment on that issue? Where have you been right? Where's the point of you recognizing, going, oh, here we got an issue. Let me do something about it. Now, maybe you call upon a fix to it that doesn't work, but at least you can see the guy calling upon a fix, trying something else out. With Grubb, you got a little bit too much of times here where you're sliding away from the run too much and you're falling too much into the trappings of trying to throw it. You've got your quarterback leading the league in attempts at times here for a team that's, winning more football games than they're losing. You're not getting stacked on the scoreboard behind the points on a consistent basis here. Sometimes it's happening, but not on a consistent basis enough to have it driven that hard in that way. But this is a valid criticism of Grubb at this point, because it has been something that we've seen over and over again. And I don't know why, T. It's a little bit confounding to me. I can only go back to, again, and maybe it's just the broad brush excuse here with Grubb, but I think it's a valid one to say, I think that he just has a real predilection to wanting to run his offense a certain way, and that's not built upon as much the personnel he has in the house, where the team is strong, where the team is necessarily weak. It gets overridden at times, I think, by the philosophy that he wants to implement. And that gets hard to do when you have such failing parts and failing factors on the team in other ways. In this case, you got a feeling you got a backup quarterback in there that's in over his head at that moment. And from the first throw in the football game, you could see that from Sam. So I don't know, T. I wish I had a better explanation for it. I don't. And I like you. It frustrates me. And it's a place where there's just continued to be no adjustment here on this one. I can get it when you're into the early third quarter and you're down as much as you are at that point. But once you had climbed back in within 10 points on this one, and you could, a good settled drive to go get a touchdown, you're within 3 points, and maybe there's some time that's taken off, but you still have 3 timeouts at that point, right? It makes a lot of sense to lean into that and stay with that, especially with how Zach's been running the past, couple of weeks. Washington Fish Quest, thank you for the $2 donation. This is IMO, give Grubb 2 years, needs 1 true off season. That's probably where it will probably go, I would reckon, on this. If there is a draw out there to maybe find somebody more substantial, they might do it. But as I was speaking about earlier on this, just hard for me with some of the draw on this and what you've given him on this, to give him a bit of a harsh critique, or to give him a sort of a, we've seen enough. Here's your pink slip. Here's your severance. Have a good day. That might get a little bit tough for me to do. And here's where I really will probably come to with the Grubb situation, is rather than having really a strong opinion about wanting to see Grubb gone or wanting to see Grubb have to stay here and giving him that second year for me, Washington Fish Quest, it really may just come down to me of saying, I'll go with where Mike wants to go on this. It's on the line for me. And if he comes to the evaluation point of saying that offensive line was next level kind of bad and Grubb did what he could with it, and a big part of why we were in first place so late this season was because he had found some places to overcome with that, I would get McDonald taking that outlook of it. But likewise, if he comes to the end of it and he's like, I was in that mother effer's ear all season long telling him to run it and he just wouldn't listen to me, well, I would get that too if he maybe gets a little bit more on the harsh side too there, Fish Quest. But I think you're probably right. All things being equal, it's probably going to go into that direction of things when it's said and done there. Radu Turkan, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, felt like not a single Geno jersey at the game. He's a guy that's got a lot of diverse of opinion on him, Radu. And, you see it in here on the chat on a weekly show-by-show basis. He draws out very emotional responses usually, and it's a bit where the people out on him are not just out on him a little bit. They have very strong gut instincts to where they don't want that. And the fan base, I think, has done a pretty good job of embracing him, but you have a quarterback that's, taking over at the job at 33 years old, taking over for the best quarterback that played the position prior. It's going to be hard to win over those hearts and minds. in the best of times if things are going great. When you've had a team that hasn't been able to really make much playoff noise in that 3 years, and with Geno, I think too, he does so many good things like this game, 15-19, 149 yards. You're very accurate. You're dealing with that pressure. You're working around that pressure really well. You went through 3/4 of this game dealing with that pressure and only had 3 sacks. Howell was out there for a quarter and 3 minutes and he got sacked 4 times. Good things. But then you've got that horrible, awful interception that will stand at the forefront of people's minds. And football is a game I've told you about, Radu, that can be driven in people's mind to be victims of the moment, victims of a single play in the game. These other 119 plays don't exist, don't matter. We're irrelevant. It's this one play here that is really the overriding one of it. And that is kind of the case there with Geno a little bit, but not going to change. That kind of diverse opinion is not going to change at the end of this, coming off the end of this game. Keon Lund, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, good point. I had to beg people to cheer. I've had to do it too. And I've had to beg people to cheer in that stadium, and the reaction you get, and it's this, you guys can sense the mentality of this person that is just this is where I come to it. It's a mentality. It's a soft like person that's never like, I don't know, effing, like probably got some nice, easy going job, just real sheltered kind of life, right? Because they're the kind of people you look at and you go, hey, it's 3rd down. Can you yell for them? And they give you that asshole smarmy look back. Don't say a word back to you. I'm sure this is the reaction you got, Keon. They just give you that dead-eyed look, like they don't got a thought rattling around in their skull. Right? Come on, they need you. Let's go. This is the look. I've been in that stadium multiple times over 10 years. Every single time over the last 10 years. Yeah. Like, oh, how dare I ask somebody around me to, let's get loud. How dare you ask me when you're in this stadium to cheer, you to cheer? What a concept. I can't believe we got to this point. You got to explain to somebody, and then it's like, if I've been somebody ever in a stadium, I'm at home, and somebody's got to tell me to cheer, like at first my reaction, oh, look, God, yeah. Oh. Instead, their reaction is, but I think thoroughly at this point, with the NFL's greed and with sort of the change in mentality of the fans that go into those stadiums, because I do think it's just that the higher priced folks that go in there have their little, pompous kind of mentality with walking in there versus I think some of the blue collar boys and girls have walked in there in the prior generations who, didn't need the team winning necessarily for them to root for them, that they understood they were there for the experience. They were there for part of this journey, part of being a Hawk fan, part of a lineage, part of a history, part of a generational thing that's a baton that we hand one to the next. And right now, my generation, we're handing that baton out to you guys in the next part. We're extending it on out to you guys. And you're knocking it out of our hand. And maybe that's what you want. And maybe that's where this will go. I don't think that's what you want. I don't want this to be where it goes. But that's what's in the process of happening right now. Game after game, year after year, story after story, from firsthand accounts that I hear, from myself walking in that stadium and dealing with it multiple times over the years. This thing's going away. This beautiful tradition that is unique to Seattle, unique to us, it's going away. So you can have a self-righteous attitude as to why you don't have to participate or don't have to do it, or you can sell your season tickets and you can have all of your excuses in the world that you want to live underneath for why it's okay for it to happen. But that's the end result of this. It's why I rail against it so hard, is I don't want to see it go away. It's a wonderful thing. The greatest advantage in professional sports. Slipping through our grip. Slipping. Thank you again, man, for all the donations, you guys. Absolutely unbelievable in your support. Unbelievable. And bear with me, guys. I'll be right back. Seahawks, Brando. Did Zach only have 8 carries the whole game, or was that after Geno got hurt? Nope, that's 8 carries the whole game. Whole game. Tommy says it almost feels like Grubb can't wait until we're down by 2 scores so he can abandon the run. True. True. AB says Geno constantly forcing throws, causing turnovers in the red zone's killing us so bad. Yes, I know the O-line is serious liability, but Geno gets too much slack. That bonehead is not the one. Yeah, it's if the Hawks don't look to sign him to a contract extension, very well be the direction that they choose to go this offseason, AB. And if they do, if they don't, his red zone interceptions and his number of turnovers and turnover-worthy plays are probably going to factor in as large as anything in that decision. Nabber says, not only do we not have the 12th man crowd anymore, we are below average environment for the NFL right now. That's right. Not only have you dropped off to where you're not one of the leaders up there, that you're not even middle of the road right now. You are becoming very quickly a piss poor NFL environment. Why else are you less than 500 record at home over the last 3-4 years? What other you haven't been purely bad over that period. Hell, you're going to have a winning record probably on the road this year. What other reason is there? There's no juice in that stadium right now. There's no juice. No electricity. Young, I'm down to give Grubb 1 more year, only to give him the benefit of the doubt, with this being his first year. I think that's fair. I think it's very fair. John Robinson says, Grubb has shown nothing, though. That's the problem. It gets to a point, you can't blame the O-line for everything. You got to blame the lack of development of players and the actual blocking scheme. I think that's fair. That's fair, too. It's where I go either way on this one. I wish I had more of a firmer opinion, but kind of get it just on either with it. Wait, what? It says the Hawks are just mid. That's it. And I hate it. Rather be terrible and get amazing draft picks than turn elite and say 3 years than stay mid for years and years, in my opinion. That's where I think I'm in agreement with you, Wade. I think it's the worst place to be, is to be in in-between state. And that's where the team's got to do a bit of a hard decision this offseason, where they are indeed close. And many choices here would push you in the direction of taking those next couple of steps to vault yourself into contender status. But you also could be just tricking yourself to vault yourself back into that in-between state that you've been the past few years. And so this is where the decision has to be very clear. You have to be very cogent in your thought, and you got to be very certain in your outlook, because that's where the key of the next decision goes. You've got an opening here if you need to rebuild, if you need to turn it down. It's understandable if you want to do that. It's not the worst way to go if you want to do that. But you need to make the certain decision one way or the other on this one, and you better be right about it, or you're going to get stuck. Dig Docs, Brandon, I'm very happy with having McDonald, but curious about your thoughts of Dan McQuinn being 9-5 with the Commanders. Not awful being in the Eagles conference, I think. The division, you mean, with that? Which I think would be my first answer to you on this, is that division gives them, in my opinion, you're playing 2 games against the Cowboys, 2 games against the Giants. That's like a free 4 win stack right there alone. They played the Browns, they played the Bears, they played the Panthers. Quality win-wise from the Washington Commanders standpoint, their best quality win is the Bengals game, pretty much. So they beaten here's the wins for their Washington Commanders this year: the Titans, the Saints, the Giants twice, the Bears, the Panthers, the Browns. I mean, that's right there. Is they got a really easy schedule this year. If we had the Commanders' schedule, we'd probably be sitting 9-10 wins as well. I think we've had a tougher schedule. Though we could even beat the Giants, so there is that. Chris says, I was the guy today saying shut the F up out loud when someone kept saying we should just give up and tank. God, I hate that mentality. Yeah, I don't like that mentality either. And I'm not asking for tanks, certainly if we do rebuild, but just to make your decisions carefully this offseason, because there is the opportunity to go both ways. And if you're going to be the contender, some things that got to get rounded out right really quick to hope to reach to that status by next year. From where you're going, how you're going to attack the quarterback position to what you're going to do about the offensive line. James Peters says everybody wants to blame Grubb, but doesn't know if the problem is Geno. When Geno's taking the check down, never. How many catches did Sharp have today? Only one. And it could be part of the puzzle here. I'm definitely trying to hold Geno's feet to the fire, especially on that throw. It does get hard to hold feet around Geno on a game like this where he's 15 of 19. So pretty good around that throw, but that's not to undersell how bad that throw was. As far as the rest of the games on that, could be some of that. There's been some of this in watching the All-22 from my perspective of this, James, where he's not giving him the check down options, where there's a lot of routes pushing down the field, trying to kind of flood zone concept on deep routes rather than having as many check down short options. Dune Moose says, I wonder if people who don't cheer just don't understand what's going on. I don't know. I don't think it's that as much as I just think that they don't want to be pushed to work. They feel like they're being asked to do a job at that point rather than them taking part in something that's synergistic and traditional and very cool. They just, I don't give them the benefit of the doubt as much as just being kind of ignorant to it. I think they know. They just don't want to do it. Monsoon is the 12s era ending. I don't know how you get it back at this point because the next generation seems to have checked out on this fully. And I've gotten plenty of pushback from them on it. I've gotten, as I said, this is not, I'm in a unique place on this channel, folks, because I do so many shows every week, all year round. And these kind of topics spin back up over and over, and I get a variety of different outlooks. It's not the same people just coming to my chat. I get a variety of different people in my chat talking about this. And the folks that have been in the camp of, I don't want to scream, have a lot of real paper thin excuses as to why they don't want to do it, but they're resolute in their unwillingness to do it. They can't be talked out of it. They can't be motivated. They can't be reasoned with. They're like the Terminator, but as a fan that doesn't want to cheer. John Brando, Brando used to be a badge of honor to cheer so loud as a 12 that at work the next day you would have a hoarse voice. Old school. That was the old ways. Those were the old ways. God, we were strong back then. I think the Hawks, Geno got the Hawks to this game with a crappy O-line. Next 3 games, if Geno's not playing, we'll all see that point clear, crystal clear. O-line, nose tackle, and inside linebacker, please. King Bomber, how you doing, man? Have quite a few things to say about this game. I'd imagine you do. John says, defenses are just teeing off. We need a Shanahan night. Bad. I knew this was going to be a problem, which is why I wanted an offensive coordinator for head coach. As soon as we got a good one, he's gone. King Rick Woolen is getting traded this offseason. I can count on that. I think it's probably likelihood. Kirian, we've literally watched the Seahawks fans games swing our way because of our fans being loud. How can you not admit to this? It's objectively true, let alone the team just feeling supported plus momentum. Indeed, Seahawks swing our way because the fans are being loud. Yeah, there have been good games that they've seemed to come back a little bit in, but I think by and large, it's the trend over the last few years has not been that way. James says, Brandon, did we roll the quarterback out of the pocket even once on play action today? Nope. No, we did not. Not a lot of misdirection, not a lot of rollouts, a lot of shotgun stuff. Very simplistic. King Bomber, I know there was a lack of Seahawks fans in attendance, but to be honest, ticket prices were borderline $200 all week. I don't understand how they expect the average fan to afford that. I don't either. It's tough. Monsoon, you should do a collab with NorbCam. I'm totally down, Monsoon. It sometimes gets hard in the year right now just because I've got so many shows going on every year right now, but I'd absolutely love to do a collab with NorbCam for sure. He does great work out here on YouTube. John, yeah, how come all of our defensive backs lost the ability to track the ball and turn their heads to the ball? I don't know, man. It was a bit of the case in this game where they just could not find it in the air tonight. I don't know if there was maybe it's those drones that everyone's seeing now, you know? It was like, I saw there was a drone up in the sky and it took me off the ball. King says they need to clear season ticket holders and redo the entire process. It's complete BS. And that's a lot of these tickets are being sold left and right. Agreed, man. I do agree there, King. I think that's a place where you can start to do some things to fix this. That's one place that stands out to me too, is start to relook at the season ticket holding process. And if there is some things that can be done to kind of fix that up. Kieran says the team doesn't win because of the fans being loud, no S, but home field advantage used to mean something in Seattle. Is he talking to somebody? Are you talking to somebody in the chat there? Kieran, let me know if you're referencing to me or someone above on that. I think you're talking to somebody above in the chat there. As I always say on this, folks, we have a lot of people in the chat tonight. Just if you're referencing something for me directly, make sure, please, Brando, Oxnest, HN, hey, yes, ho. I answer to it all. King Bomber, the offense was mediocre at best, but I think the play calling became one-sided after McDonald failed to force a single punt in the entire first half. Yeah. I think you ran into the run game very quickly after that started to go down like that. Very, very quickly. Keon Lund, thank you for the $2 donation. It says, what's the outlook next week with the quarterback situation? My estimated guess on this is if Geno's not able to come back into this game and tough it out, it's going to be very hard to get back into next week's game. And especially, I think it's going to be tough for the Hawks to have Geno go out there, even if he can kind of hobble around, because he's going to be dealing up against that Minnesota Viking front that's going to run a lot of that blitz action. I'm going to guess Brian Flores is going to run it nonstop. And that means Geno's going to need his legs and to get away from pressure at times. And so having that ability to not use his legs at all next week, which is probably going to be the case, probably draws the team to go with Sam Howell to start. It's hard to say. They say there is no structural damage on the knee, Keon, but I would say that's probably how they play it. JRD243, thank you for the $5 donation and all of your support tonight, JRD. Seems like I give the team more energy from my couch than the lazy-ass fans in the stadium. It needs everybody in the stadium to be at their full-throated best to get the most out of that stadium to have the maximum impact. And if you get such a large contingent that decides not to, and the way it works is that you have all the season ticket holders sell to all those Packer fans, so here's a nice chunk of fans right here. They're going to be quiet on when their offense is on the field. And then you get another huge contingent of the fans in the stadium that also don't want to be loud. I was in the stadium a couple of years ago there with Megan watching the Cardinals game. You know, we're down on the lower level. And I'm watching people busy just doing nothing but stuff their face. I've seen people that didn't get out of their chair once, that didn't open their mouth once. And then you're looking from here and over there and over there. And yeah, sure, there's others that are up, but just can't be bothered. Can't be bothered. I don't get it either. It don't make no sense to me, JRD. But like I said, we can lament it. I think it's just kind of where the trend is heading. Rick Zapata, thank you for the $20 donation. Rick, man, very kind of you. I really appreciate that. It sickens me to see other teams' jerseys in our house. I think it all these candy asses in the tech sector. People are generally soft in Seattle. Damn. Wish for more Super Bowl victories. I guess I'm just dreaming. Yeah, it's hard to see, isn't it, a little bit from your point, Rick, on this? And I don't want to draw too much of a conclusion on the fan base on this. I don't, but it is something that I think fans like myself and Rick turn over in our mind on this. Part of what helped to catapult you and to galvanize the Legion of Boom team that went through and won a Super Bowl, or the Mike Holmgren teams in 2005 to get to where they got, because both of those two teams were able to take a first-round bye to get them to the Super Bowl. They were able to buoy themselves off the back of that crowd noise through those playoffs because everybody knew what time it was, because you could be that difference-making outlet at that time to get them to that place. Did they have to be great teams on top of that? Yeah. But could you give them a little bit of extra jet fuel to help them get up to the atmosphere? Absolutely. And so you start to wonder, would we have that same jet fuel that we could provide these teams if they got good like that again? And it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder that maybe not. That maybe there's just a soft contingent that goes in that stadium that doesn't want to be that way. That they just want to watch. They want to stuff their mouth with varieties of different food options they have in the stadium. That's all they want to do. So be it, I guess. But I think, Rick, it is a really, maybe the younger fans won't understand this too, but it's really hard for folks that are old like myself to look at this and to have been in that stadium through multiple generations of fans. Multiple generations of fans who did not drop this ball. Team played bad tonight. Team could have given the fans a lot more to cheer for tonight. No denying that. But you see all of those jerseys of the opposition in your house. You got Geno talking about after the Buffalo Bills game that it felt like a game on the road. There was never a point in time I can remember any player ever saying in the late 70s, 80s, 90s, felt like a road game in our own house. You know, it was maybe a little bit on those the days we were playing in Washington Husky Stadium. We were going through the stadium rebuild. Those were tough times. But even then, I can't remember a moment that stood out that was like that. And Geno was right. You look at that stadium and you can see all the Buffalo blue out there. You go, yikes. I wondered the same things, Rick. The same thoughts go through my mind a little bit. Will we have the fan base ready to help push that team on in the way that they need to? Or have we grown soft? Are we fat and happy on our Super Bowl win? Are we satiated? I guess we'll learn once they get that team to that state. But it would be nice to get back a little bit of this home field advantage, I'll tell you that. Thank you. I really appreciate that $20 donation. That's really kind of you, Rick. Very, very kind of you. And I feel exactly the way you feel about it. It sickens me. This is such a beautiful, unique thing we have here that no other fan base has. That's why. Not just some small little thing. It's this one really treasured, unique thing. And I'm only lamenting it because I'm just trying to pass it down to you as the next. I ain't going to be here for a long period of time down the road, you know. I'll move on like the next generation behind me moved on, and it's going to be on you next. And then for you to pass it down. And we're getting a little stuck on the handoff here. We're trying to extend the baton there and you're knocking it away from us. You're like, no, I'm eating some popcorn. I can't grab the baton. I'm hungry. I'm starving. There's a game going on. Huh? What? There's a game down there. It's third down. You can yell right now. I'm eating, okay? I got food in my mouth. I can't cheer. Nina Garsh. Thank you, Nina, for subscribing to the channel. I appreciate you for doing that. Welcome aboard the Hawks Nest. Folks, if you could for me today, well over a couple hundred people in the chat tonight. If you can hit that like button for me, maybe sub on up like Nina has, I'd really appreciate it as we're on the road to 20,000 subscribers this year. We're trying to get over that mark. We are pushing hard. We're getting very close, and you can help us get up over that spot tonight by helping and subbing on up, hitting that like button, which helps me show up on the old algorithm here on YouTube. But Nina, thank you for doing that, and thank you to everybody for all of the many donations tonight on the channel and the big donations at that. Y'all are very kind to me, man. Very, very kind to me. King says, I appreciate Jacobs winning me the game to get me into the playoffs, but man, that was an atrocious run defense in the first half of football. Brutal. You walked into the game, King, knowing you got to stop Jacobs is the focal point, and you allowed him to have the first 8 touches in this game, and the Packers to move the ball right up the field. You just kind of looked at that and probably is the harbinger right there, wasn't it? Probably a good indicator right there that this thing was going to go sideways. James says, we are the worst offensive line in the NFL this year. That'll change. Mac likes the running game. I hope so, James. I hope to God you're right. As it needs it. King says, I'm out on Grubb, unfortunately. They can give him another year, but I'm pretty much done with what he's shown. We'll see what he does in the next 3 games, but we'll see. I get it. King says, I was really hoping this year was going to be different, but it seems like the season is over unless they change something ASAP. Offense gets it figured out, and Geno's back, and we dominate next week. Kind of the way it looks. It's a bit dark, as optimistic as it was coming into this game for the rest of the year, especially with Geno's injury here now. Chris says, I believe Grubb, Huff can develop an O-line, just need the guys to better fit their scheme. Same problems existed with Waldron and Shoddy here. Good points. And I think that there's something there that's completely valid within that, in that this ain't a recent new problem, this line. There's been other offensive coordinators who've come through here and had the same impediments in their ability to call a consistent game plan to get a consistent offensive performance over the course of a game. And largely, you can maybe point back to those main issues that were preventing them from doing that, being piss poor offensive line play across the board, run blocking and in pass protection. John says, I think we need an offensive coordinator to center on the run game, and we need to get a quarterback who brings value to the offense with his legs, so when we lose our offensive coordinator. I think it got cut off there. Sorry about that, John. So it got cut off. King says, the other thing I'll excuse Mike on is this. There's a clear pattern with success between AFC and NFC teams. We're going to be 4-1 against AFC teams and 4-5 against NFC teams, 3 of which are in our division. True? Kieran, Hawksnest, I was at the game, your donation animation, where Cam blew up Vernon Davis. Every game I went to in that era, the whole fan base was losing their voice and giving each other tinnitus. It may have been the epicenter of where we're at, Kieran. It may have been at the peak. Everything had been building for those many decades to that spot. But that's where it was for me, too. I'd been in that stadium during that time, too. And you're right. It was, everybody knew what time it was there. You didn't look through and see a sea of different other jerseys in the stadium. There was no excuses being made. There was no looking around you and begging forth those around you to be loud. People knew what time it was. This didn't need to be something that needed to be instructed. I walked in that stadium as a young man in the 80s and saw the people around me doing what they were doing. I know what I need to be doing. This ain't hard. This ain't complex. Yeah, back in that point, it was rolling like that. Absolutely. King says, so I think there's a clear disparity of the lack of experience with this coaching staff that's unable to translate to the field. Probably a bit of this mix. John says, the template of defensive head coach should be looking for a quarterback playmaker who can add value to the run game. That would be nice. I think that the tough part with that, John, becomes, where are you taking that quarterback in this draft? Who is that guy? Is that guy really available in this draft you can go and take and select who can fit that mark? Maybe. Wade says, I'm still mad about the Jamal Adams trade. Yeah, that's a tough one. Charles says, first, third, and fifth had no routes within 15 yards. Second was a slow play action. Detox. I think the quiet fans are Locke and Howell lovers, but I could be wrong. John says it's sad too because I was impressed with Grubb at Washington. Just haven't been really impressed with them at all in Seattle. There's some disappointing things there, you know. Jimmy says ticket prices are expensive for these games. They are. A little bit, probably too much so. King says also look at the teams Mike has faced in Baltimore. The 4 teams he hasn't faced yet are Detroit, Green Bay, Minnesota, and Chicago. And he's 0-2. I've been as good against the NFC, man. That's for sure. John Brando, do you think Zach Martin's cooked at this point in his career? Yeah, I think he's going to retire, John. He's 34. And certainly if you're going to be running a mobile blocking scheme at this point going forward, it's not going to be a fit to his skill set. I think he's also had a little bit of that, end of the career kind of dip in performance from where he was at, versus prime. John says DK somehow still pulling double teams almost every damn play. And what the hell happened to him? He was on pace for 1,500 yards. I think the injury thing came up, John. I don't think he's at 100% right now. But he's still pulling that coverage. You're right about that. They had a great shot in the game where they showed that. King, I get the thing about the offensive line being bad and the defense not supporting him at times. But there isn't a single game I can point to outside of the Lions game where Geno has played like a phenomenal quarterback against top competition. I mean, I guess that's relatively, fair. It's all a weighted thing, man. It's really a weighted thing on how much you're going to want to factor in a little bit of the line coming into play on this one and what that should be given the measure to. But when it comes to the Geno thing at this point, that's going to be the big point of discussion as we go into this future, this end of the season, for sure, especially if he's seen his last action. And it's a tough call for the team on this one, okay? Hash slinging slasher. I love that name, man. Hey, Brandon, do you think the bad defensive play call can be linked to Coach McDonald's tendency to lose first time around versus quality offensive coaches? For example, his first go around versus McDaniel. Not as much, Hash. I think that this game was one where LaFleur brought out the Kansas City Chiefs offensive attack against the Baltimore Ravens last year in the playoffs. And that has to do with more of the ability to hit this scheme in the pertinent places that it was looking to attack, especially early on in this game. A and B gap runs. And when you're not going to have this team in 3-4, when they're going to be in the 4-man down fronts, those 4-man down fronts are going to get stretched wider. A back who is an A and a B gap killer like Jacobs will be able to really flourish at that point. Or if not flourish, he's going to get the 3 yards in a cloud of dust like he did today. So they attacked in that way. They had success. Like you saw the Chiefs last year in the playoffs where with Mahomes and that big arm, what was he doing? Check downs, bubble screens, tunnel screens, screens to the running back. A lot of just quick, get the ball out of my hands. Just get a quick short completion. Let's live in 3rd and 3. Let's live in 3rd and 4. And if you do those things against a Mike McDonald defense, you can find success. It's easier said than done. They found some adjustments into the second half on that, but that's how they were starting to, that was really where they were able to make some noise in this one, in my opinion, Hash. So I don't think it's necessarily that. I certainly think you're onto something in that once he gets a chance to really play these guys with his personnel he has in the house right now versus playing them down the road, you're going to see him, I think, better. He's a good adjuster. He's a good guy to give him, the more data you give him McDonald, the more he's going to be able, I think, to grow and improve upon. It's one of the good parts about him as a coach, I think. Johnson, I think the bottom line about Geno is his timeline doesn't match up with the timeline of the team. We've got to get a cheaper at quarterback while we build this line. Yeah, that's where we come back to me, John. If it's at the place of moving off Geno, then it's got to be one probably to twisting and moving this more to a rebuild. That there's a bit of a pivot point on this with Geno at the centerpiece of this of, signing Geno, you're going for it. Not signing Geno, then you probably need to turn hard the other way. Because I think if you're looking at going for the alternative quarterback here, John, then that does not mean competing in 2025. You're not going to go find a second, third, fourth round guy who's going to walk in here with this offensive line, even if you get it somewhat improved, who's going to find, I think, a lot of success. So now we get a little bit more onto, I think, having to kind of turn this over a little bit more heartily. As hard as that might be at that point. But I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's kind of one decision goes to the other at that point. Keon Lund, thank you for the $5 donation. Do you think Cardinal fans talk about being fans on their fan pages? I don't. No, probably not. But that's definitely a fan base that, has a very, they've got their share of fans that are certainly in, but they're not in the same mode as we are. And I've lived in the city of Tempe, so I can speak to this personally. That's not a fan base that's as engaged with their football team in that same way. That the football team exists, it's there. They definitely kind of care with what happens with them, but it's not the same kind of voraciousness that you get with the 12th man, Thomas says the Rams will make the playoffs. Maybe that'll be a good thing to fix the main weakness Seattle has. I hope so. I don't have any faith in Sam either, Thomas. Wait says, I feel like the Lumen Field experience should be you are encouraged to yell as loud as you can and make an impact in the game, hence the name 12th man. People just don't get that anymore. They don't. It's weird. It's just like it's skipped a generation, like some genetic coding sequence. Don't get it either. Brandon says, yeah, a bunch of overworked Americans taking time to go to an outing, watching a professional sports team during their free time. I get it, but the crowd influences the game. Fact. If you buy a ticket, get with it. Thanks. Well said, Brandon. Well said. And yeah, that's the thing that they'll kind of say to it with it. And I get it with the, where people are at in that mentality, but that's where it's like, look, if I'm overworked, then don't, and I can't give my energy in the same, then don't go watch it from home. You're going to get about the same experience. So it's not to say that some of these excuses, like the priced out point, and the more of the wine and cheese crowd, certainly valid. They're coming in there. It's hard to do, you get, I don't know why it's connected in this way, but you get more of the affluent people in there. They get quieter. They get less driven to have to be loud. It's all these things. But, the excuses be damned. We got to get with the program because it's such a beautiful thing that we don't want to die out. Not because I selfishly want it, but because I love it. And I want the tradition to be there for our future generations. Not for this next generation behind us to be like, yeah, we inherited this thing that they did for like 40 years. I don't know. They just decided they were going to get loud and hurt their voices. They'd like hurt their voices on Sunday so that like they couldn't talk on Monday and like have fun and do cool things on Monday. So they're like they didn't just want to just watch, I guess. I don't know. They were kind of weird back then, those older people. Chris says there's a lot of people with who spending more time yapping nonstop and taking selfies, completely unaware where they're at. And they get offended if you're standing up. Yeah. They look at you like you're an alien when you start trying to partake. I've seen it a few times myself. We're at this spot where not only you're not going to yell, but you're going to look at me like I'm the a-hole for yelling, standing up. Thomas, how bad was Geno's injury, and was it really close when Geno left the game? I had to get up early for work, so I didn't get a chance to look at the game. Geno's injury is TBD. There's no structural damage in the knee, but I don't know if he's going to have really a good opportunity to really truly play this next Sunday. We weren't really close in the game at that point. We found a way back in after a fumble caused by Ernest Jones that got us back into it. And you got back within 10 points, got a score on that. But from there, that was about as much as you could mount. Not really much fight, really. Brian says season ticket holders always sell the premium game tickets. It's how they revolve their offset cost. It happens everywhere. Yeah, it does. Something that I'd like to see the NFL stem away here, Brian. But as we talked about earlier on this, I don't think the NFL is going to do anything about it because it also helps to, artificially, I would say, push ticket prices up in general. There's more certainty about tickets being sold every week. NFL likes that. Less blackouts. NFL likes that. But it sucks. Freaking sucks. Nina says, I thought I was already subscribed, laughing out loud. Thanks for the shout out. Of course, Nina. I appreciate you doing that. Very much appreciate you doing that. We're getting very close. We rounded past 18,400 today. Bad day for the Hawks. Good day for the Hawks Nest. So we rounded past 18,400 subscribers today. Once we get to 19,500, I got that 24-hour stream we're going to do. And really looking forward to that for charity. And we're getting close. Ooh, are we getting close? Wade says, man, it's truly insane how fast I switch it up on this team after one game, but it makes sense. The game totally and utterly exposed us. Yeah, I'm the same way as where you're a little bit, man, you come into such high hopes. We're locking it in. We're going to get the division, home playoff game. Here we go. But then you kind of go to the other side and you go, ooh, okay. Well, those dreams were nice. I'm just going to put those in the cupboard. That was, yep, there's my foam finger. We'll put that in there. Okay, so baseball, when's baseball starting? Yeah, it's pretty harsh. It is, but it was a bad game. And there's been a few of these this year, and you're running out of time, you're running out of space, you're running out of room for error to find a way into the playoffs if you're even just hoping just to get in, just to sort of roll your way out of bed onto the floor into the playoffs. Nina says, also dig your cat, Pumpkin. Pumpkin brings comfort always. She does. She's a good girl. Look at her. She's draped over the side. Let's move on her part. She's draped up over the side here. Look at this neck. How do you even sleep like that? You know that's not comfy for her. Right? She's got her neck literally. Ooh, look at her whiskers there. She's dreaming. You can see the little whisker bounce when she's in mid-dream. Keep an eye on it. If you watch her closely, you can see her whiskers start to bounce. She's chasing bunny rabbits when that happens. She's going after bunnies. But look at that. She got her throat like right on the... Like... She's sleeping like that. She's getting choked out while she's trying to sleep. I don't think that's ergonomically correct for her back. She's a good cat though, Nina. Phoebe says, we are not saying it's all Grubb, but doesn't give an excuse for 7-step drops and bad play calling. Yep. Answers in football are oftentimes complicated. And sometimes you get some simplistic excuses for what's going on, good or bad. Sometimes you have a multitude of things going on at once. That's why we have these kind of long post-game discussions and long streams here, because it's a lot to unpack. Wait, what? I feel like I tell myself every year since like 2019, oh, we're going to be so much better next year. And next year, the year, we are super young. But then when is this team and O-line actually going to change? That'll be the question I think that holds and lingers over this team. It's now not about right coach, wrong coach. Do you have the talent? Don't you have the talent? When is that next step coming now? I think becomes the sort of the theme that starts to raise up over this team as we head into this offseason. And it's a good damn question. Kevin says, Reek gone, Walker gone, Geno leaves, DK tests the market. Well, DK doesn't have he's not a free agent quite yet, Kevin. But maybe a trade. Mom and Pops, how you doing? It's good to see you in the house. Don't tell Santa Cruz. Did you miss the old Seahawks days with Legion of Boom and a good O-line and D-line? Do I miss those? Yeah, sure. Did I miss when we were winning Super Bowls? Yeah. Thomas says, there wasn't an excuse, but I will say until Seattle wins on primetime against an elite team, Seattle will not be respected. Got to earn that respect. That's for sure. Thomas Brando, this was my main concern with Geno getting injured. I believe McDonald would learn from this, but it may be happen next season when it happened. Brando, this was my main concern with Geno getting injured. I believe McDonald will learn from this, but it may be next season when it happened. Yeah. BL Bam, you have a good night, man. I hope they bounce back as well. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you for that. Brandon Jan says, season tickets being non-transferable. There's an idea. That's the one I would like to see. It's, I think, the first straightforward thing you can do here. There's not a lot of actions and steps I think the team can undertake here to resolve this, but that's one place. There's a bit of a risk, of course, and why you don't see it more in place, of course, here with it, Brandon, is that the risk then starts to raise up that you then sell less season tickets because there's no resale value. So what's coming out of pocket is what's going to cost you, and you are not going to retain it. That's the way that's going to go. So if that's the case, then you're going to sell less season tickets. If you sell less season tickets, and if the team's bad, then there's more of a potential for a blackout, which is really where the NFL doesn't want to go with the local market. But maybe what you have to risk to correct this situation. Monsoon says, I've never seen a popular Cardinals YouTuber, like never met a Cardinals super fan or anything. It's a retirement location. It's like Florida, and Phoenix. So there's a lot of people there that aren't born and raised there. They come from somewhere else. And so it's a little bit more transient. Daniel Barry, how you doing, man? How you doing? It's good to see you. Haley, hello. How you doing? So the Hawks Nest, what's with the sea of Packer fans of the game? Jesus. Yeah, we've been lamenting that a bit here in this stream here. I mean, it's between the combination of the opposition's fans taking over the games, Haley, and then your own section and contingent of fans in the stadium that are Seahawks fans that then don't want to get loud, and then how not loud that stadium is becoming very quickly. And we're sort of turning this over, non-transferable season tickets. It is your season ticket holders that are causing the problem here, Haley. It's people who are trying to be all real smart, where I'm going to buy these season tickets. I'm going to take the collection of certain games like the Buffalo game or the Packer game, these games where there's going to be fans out there that are going to be headhunting for these tickets who are on the opposition. They'll pay a big old price for me. I'm going to get such a chunk of change that I'll be able to basically pay for my season tickets next year without having to come out of cost. And it just kind of keeps self-perpetuating every year. Meanwhile, our stadium fills little by little up with more and more and more fans as this happens. Sucks. I don't know if there's anything they can do about it, but it's causing our home field advantage to get lost and get lost really fast. Really fast. Everyone's worst nightmare. Your cat is the MVP. That cat be chilling. She be chilling big time, man. She's a chiller. She's a lover and she's a chiller. Those are the two things she does best. Chris has got to go to the game with the mentality that you're going to a party. That's right. Brandon, haha. Yo, Brando is the man. Haha. Like, get your voices loud. Like, I got meetings I have to speak up for in 2 seconds on Wednesday this week. Trash societal development. Yeah, I have no patience with it, Brandon. I don't like the excuses. I don't like the mealy mouth crap. It's a lot of soft ass stuff to me. Toughen up, be tougher. We're supposed to be bred tougher up here in the north with the cold weather. Monsoon, Brandon, is YouTube your job or a hobby? I think it was about, may have been about just 2 years ago now, Monsoon. About 2 years ago, I was able to make the full transfer to this being my full-time job. So really blessed to do what I get to do. Tough days like this to turn over with this team and what's going on, but not tough to be able to go live and be able to chop it up with you guys. I love to get to do that. So really blessed to be able to do what I do. William, hey B, are they going to fire John Schneider or not? No, I don't think so, William. There's reason and plenty of reason to have criticism on John, especially for how this offensive line's been dealt with. There's been some good things he's done in addition to that. But I think that where I've come to on this, William, was that if you're going to have John be on the hot seat, you would have just ushered him out the door last season with Pete. You turn it all over right then and there. And that if he's not on that hot seat, if he's not close to that hot seat by last year, then you got to give him then the time to let him roll. That's my outlook on it. Now, if we go through another offseason, William, and he doesn't deal with the offensive line, you're going to see me with a big old pitchfork, and you're going to see me with the torch, and I'm going to be screaming to the 12s, follow me up to Renton. Everyone behind me, fall in. And then, William, I'm going to hand you the pitchfork, and I'll be like, get to stabbing. Big old neck. Maybe at least we get K9 back, guys. Maybe K9 Sharps can carry because it seems like we run block better now, which I have no clue what our identity is anymore. I don't either. Did I miss something there, Addis, with you? I was seeing some notes in there on the thing with Addis. I don't know if I missed some comment you had on there. If you can post it again, my bad. Oh, you're speaking to Brian. Okay. How we going, brother? Kieran says this team does not deserve to make the playoffs, unfortunately. Haven't earned it. Probably lost it tonight. But even if they didn't, and we sneak in somehow, this is the likely result. True. True. Thomas, they lost it when they lost the Rams, the New York Giants game. They should have taken advantage to win those games, but I'm tired of a team that doesn't have the right players to fit the scheme. Well said. Seahawks Blue and Green, I was surprised how ill-prepared Sam Howell was. I would have never guessed he had a full season of starting experience. Well said. Yeah, he looked like a rookie quarterback in his first start out, first action in the NFL out there. I could show you some starts of guys who were in that position and then show you that, Sam, and you think it's the same kind of player. Hard for me to excuse that for a guy who's going into his third season who has a full season of experience. Brian and Addison get into it. Oh, goodness. This dude got my location somehow, says Addison. Oh, my goodness. That was a monster troll. Hacking your location. You want me to block him because he's hacking you? Maybe he just guessed, man. Maybe he's just a good guesser. Todd, did the backers have 15 guys on their offensive line? Every play they pushed us back off the line, they dominated the line. So sometimes the way it can feel, especially when they're in the two tight end sets, Todd, is this is a team in the Seahawks that have gone to 3-4 looks at times, but they like to slide at times as well into that 4-man box. Go 4 men, 2 inside linebackers. You got a 6-man box. So if an offensive line typically is going to have 5 guys down there for the 6, when you get 2 extra tight ends, now you've got a 7-on-6. You have 1 extra guy. It's not even where you're asking the running back to have to break a tackle in the open field to find space. And that was the weird counter in this game a little bit defensively and how they defended the run, especially early in the game, that I don't understand exactly. Not sure why they went that route. But that was the way they decided. I guess they were a little bit more fearful of the pass, Todd, because if you're not going to run those 3-4 looks and you're going to go to the 4-man down lines, it's because you're more worried. You want the extra guy in pass coverage to deal with those with the passing attack. Kevin says Sam Howell looked 40 and hungover. He did. Nina, I think any hate on the quarterbacks is unfair. Our O-line and play calling needs to be consistent. I still take Geno above Sam Howell, but I've enjoyed watching Sam play even as a commander. Sam played much better as a commander, to your point, Nina, than he played tonight. And I'm not out on Sam necessarily, Nina. I think it is a little disconcerting with him coming in where, look, I'm not expecting him to pick up the team on his back and go take him on a ride to bring you back and winning the game. But he was very close to non-functional as a quarterback back there. And while there was some pressure and stuff, he didn't have much of any plan coming into the game. And for a rookie quarterback, I'll expect that. For a guy going into his third year who's had a whole season of starting football games, and like you say, who've put out tape that's much better than that in Washington, that's the part that's perplexing to me. But yeah, the play calling, the offensive line sit at the head of the issues coming out of this game before we get to quarterback play. If we're looking at the egg or the chicken, we're going to the chicken first, which is those two parts that did hold you back. Thomas says, but I'm not going to give Seattle an excuse for Geno injured. Seattle is losing the teams they should have won. True. Nina says, last season when we played that home, Sam Howell kind of scared me. Yeah, he was good last year in that game against us. Decision-making was way better. Chris, is there a drone currently over your place? Could be Brian. Thomas, but I have said it. Brian doxing everyone tonight. Moda says close is non-functional. He was very non-functional. He cannot do anything behind this line. OC will need to scheme for his strengths. Yeah, he's going to need to use his legs next week too, Motive. Use your legs, young man. You're not going to have pass protection. Teams are going to be pinning their ears back, running out of control in their pass rush. So counter that by using your legs and really looking to use your legs when you got a chance. Every chance. Every chance. Long live the king. We flirted with a bad line until a disaster happened. Yes, sir. Nick says the Packers D-line feasted versus the Seahawks O-line. Almost all of them got sacks. We hand out career days like candy on that offensive line, Nick. We're very giving on that line. Very giving. Largent season 08. There was no pressure on Jordan Love. None. Your guys were able to cook up very little. It did help that the Packers were able to keep themselves in third and shorts, third and makeables, but you also were not able to get much done or much drummed up as far as any kind of pressure on him. He made his way, did what he wanted, did it well. Carrying blitz rate against the Hawks next week just went up 25%. Yeah, you better believe that Brian Flores watched this game and he was licking his chops. If he's a guy who already has that draw to want to blitz at a heavy rate, it's going to be every other play against the Seahawks front next week. They're going to go to crazy town. Hopefully Grubb's got something ready to go in his bag. Thomas says, I saw Sam in the summer and I will say he is not that good. I'd rather have another quarterback who I kept saying trade up for, like Penix, Stroud, etc. Agreed, Thomas. Sam just does not look like the answer long term. I'm still hopeful for the guy, but it does not look like he's even in the mix in the competition in the long term, which I kind of hoped for when we first traded for him, but we saw the same thing in training camp. When you watch it in person, folks, I can't understate this. Thomas can't understate this. When you watch them playing the two quarterbacks position, it was watching, a baby fawn learning how to walk, who just came out of the womb of its mother with Sam on the practice field. It's just like, whoa, what happened to Sam Howell? It was wild. Long live the king. Thank you for the $2 donation. It says, we absolutely got to line up under center more. Yeah, I agree. I would like to see more of that too as well. Play action rollouts. This is another place with Sam Howell that you've got to lean into next week. Rollouts from under center. Give him some simplified looks to the edge. Give him the opportunity to use his legs when moving in space as well in addition to that. But as I've said about about Grubb, and I think there's a lot of reason to give him excuses and not just fully drop blame on his shoulders and say, you bad. But the lack of adjustment, the lack of working to what you do strongly, some of that more of that under center stuff, some of the more the play action stuff, I think it'd be highly beneficial to this team at times, and they just don't want to go to it. He doesn't want to go to it. Don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I don't. Kevin O'Connell says, no Grubb Chubb tonight. Soft and cold. Kevin, like we just dropped into a pool at 39 degrees. Sat in there for about 8 minutes and then got out. That's where my Grubb Chubb's at tonight. Okay? My Franken beans are up inside of me. Nina says, I guess maybe Sam was just good under the commander system, I suppose. Well, I mean, even with it's being under good, good per se, and it's like, he's a young guy, Nina, so, he's 23 years old, and the story of Sam is not told, I will say. He's got to go a long ways, though, to get to a place of being functional and decent. Last year, his pass protection was about 15th in the NFL as rated by PFF. He had the 9th best run blocking unit. So he actually had pretty functional offensive line play. You've got McLaurin out there, a couple backs to kind of work out the backfield. They got a little bit Jaha Dotson, a little bit of some stuff to kind of work with here and there a bit to be functional. But with that line where it was like 15th, he took 50 sacks. He led the NFL in sacks taken last year. So when you put him behind an even worse offensive line, you're going to make those parts of his game look even worse. And that's where it gets difficult in making this assessment when I come back to it again and again on this. And I think it's at the heart of this a little bit, Nina, in that when you make these assessments about running backs or quarterbacks or receivers or getting the most out of this guy or getting the most out of that guy, when you have a line that holds all of that back so thoroughly, it just muddies everything up in making that assessment. It gets very hard and clear to just look at Sam and say, well, he's just not good enough because this thing over here is just anybody in this environment is going to fail. And it's been at the heart of my support of Geno Smith and saying this is why I've been such an ardent supporter of Geno's, that most quarterbacks and what you saw tonight with Sam Howell, that's what happens behind those kind of offensive lines that are absolutely league worst in pass protection and are absolutely league worst in run blocking. That's the result you get in quarterback play as far as here's how this goes with the formula. And then the fact that you've had Geno able to play up at a well above functional level of play at the quarterback position speaks to Geno's ability and what he's been able to pull off. But it gets hard to make the assessment one way or the other on this one, Nina, because of how bad this is up front in that way. Brandon Jana says, here's my question. Maybe we should just take a step back and consider that maybe, just maybe, Sam Howell played like total S because he was thrown into an unexpected situation that was already really shitty. Possibly, Brandon, that's a bit of it. I'm open to that being the case. It is a quarter and whatever on the assessment point of this. And it looks like he's going to get a great opportunity next week against the Vikings to show that this was a 1 week off. And we'll see where that goes with this. Unfortunately, when it comes to Sam Howell, you're not being given really the benefit here of just simply sitting on this one for a couple of years to make the determination with him, because you have to make a determination on Geno. And if you're going to make the determination on moving on from Geno, I don't know that you're going to be able to roll with Sam even going into next year at this point, if this is what the level of play is that he's at. Because if Sam's here at that point and Geno's gone, Sam needs to be pushing that quarterback competition in a major way with whoever you go out and get then to dance against Sam. It can't be the lesser of two evils. It can't be the best of two piles of crap. And that's what I want to avoid if that's a way that could end up going there in that direction of it. Geno Smith came in a couple of years ago, Brandon, for Russell Wilson in a game where Russell Wilson was under a lot of duress, where you weren't able to run the ball particularly well, where you weren't getting very much done offensively, where your starting quarterback got broken because of that pass rush and that pressure. So equivalent game here, right? In that game, Russell goes out. The offense, not like the offense was humming before Russell went out. The offense was not finding any footing. Pass rush, no run game. Russell goes out. Geno comes in, takes the team 97 yards for a touchdown. Has the offense operating throughout the course of that game to where he almost brings them from behind. and it's a final play on that game where you're driving and then Tyler Lockett gets pulled down on a play uncalled by the officials and it's intercepted. Blatant pass interference. That's a real big difference from the Sam Howell we saw tonight. That Geno Smith. And the conditions, those, like you say, the crappy conditions he had to deal with, the crappy conditions that Geno had to deal with. So I think that there's a little bit of, there's some fairness on it. And it's not simplistic, Brandon, just to say, well, just Sam trash. There's some parts of this to look at that weigh into this in totality, but that was a really bad performance by Sam Howell, and he should be better in year 3 with a full year of starting under his belt if you call upon him late into his 3rd season to come in and just be functional. I mean, he couldn't hit a throw to the flat. He couldn't hit a throw to the flat. He couldn't hit a throw to the flat. What part of that is pressure? What part of that is intense? I mean, I don't have much excuse on those kind of little, you got to be better than that. I can't explain all the way. Just you're a young quarterback. You're professional. Come out and be ready to play. Motive, we need definitely bigger and meaner guys on both sides of the ball. That would help. That would help. Hand grenade heading out. Have a good one, hand grenade. We'll probably start to wrap this one up a little bit. Largest says, how's the cat doing? She's doing good. She's sleeping. She's mourning this loss like we all are. Gary, and they showed it on coverage. Packers were setting some kind of franchise quick pass rush pressure record tonight. Gotta love how our team has helped others achieve unheard of records this year. Indeed, man. Indeed. Like I say, we hand out career days like cotton candy. Here you go, son. You like that? Here you go, son. Kevin says, that's piss poor excuse. Backup job is to go in when there's no other option. You're the last defense. You got to make it work. He failed. Amen. Hamza says, laughing out loud, Cardinals winning the division. Hey, wouldn't that be ironic? You never know. It is possible, Jeffrey. There's some wild tiebreakers that break down at the end of the year on this, Jeffrey, that just make this a little unclear with that. So Hamza's not as out of pocket on this one as you might think with that. Long Live the King says, yeah, you can't be airmailing dump-offs. No. I'm going to have a hard time to find the excuse train on those kind of throws. You can't make the simplistic 5-yard throw into the flat. Nina says, I thought Sam was only a true starter in the last season with the Commanders. Not an excuse, though. I understand. It's still year 3 in his professional career. It's valid there, Nina. He's in year 2 last year, so he's got his full rookie year where he sits down, right? Doesn't play his first rookie year, has a year to learn, comes into his second year, plays a full slate of games, has this 3rd season now. So he's a young man as far as like he's young quarterback age-wise, but he's been in the league for some years now. And it was his only true starter of a year last year, but he showed enough from what he played last year to say that this isn't a guy, if you put him in the game, he's going to fall flat on his face. You could have gotten this performance today from Jaron Hall. You could have gotten this performance today from an undrafted rookie free agent quarterback, and it would be exactly the same. And I think to expect a little bit more than that from Hal is not to then just be unfair to him you're being real unfair just to this young guy. It's like, you should be better than that. I mean, let's just review again, just not to hammer it here, but just one last little review on this, just again with Sam in this game. Just one more little review with this. Geno Smith, 15 of 19, 149 yards, averaging 7.8 yards per attempt, almost 8 yards per attempt. 1 interception, 41.9 quarterback rating, 77 rating. Sam Howell, 5 of 14, 5 less attempts than Geno Smith. 5 less attempts than Geno Smith. 5 of 14, 24 yards. Geno 149, Sam 24. 1.7 yard per average attempt. Geno under the same amount of duress in this game, sacked 3 times. Sam in a quarter in about 4 minutes, sacked 4 times. Didn't use his legs, didn't avoid the rush, wasn't aware of the pressure around him, couldn't throw throw to the flat, tossed an interception. That's as bad a performance as you get from a quarterback. It's not merely like, well, he just wasn't kind of prepared. That's horrible. That is god-awful performance. And it certainly is, he's young, and I'm not trying to throw him into the trash, but let's not dress it up as something it isn't as well, being that was tough. That was tough to see him in that kind of state. Mariah says, I can't stop thinking about the Seahawks. I just want Geno back at least. Me too, Mariah. Me too. Crashy says, we need to draft a quarterback, then sit him behind Geno as we build our O-line. I'd love to see that, Crashy. It's going to be hard to find that guy because this is a weak draft class for quarterbacks. Jeffrey said, thank you for the $5 donation. Yeah, it says, have you considered the possibility that Geno thrives in chaos and doesn't know how to operate a functional offense? He's never been quarterbacked one before. Have I considered that a possibility? No, I haven't considered that a possibility. The problem with saying, for instance, to take where your statement's going to the conclusion of that is to say Geno struggles then when there is no chaos and you give him calm pockets and you give him a good run game, he doesn't know what to do with that. That's sort of logically taking that to the next step, Jeffrey. But like we just saw last week in the first game that he got, where he had a functional run game, he was hyper efficient as a quarterback. He didn't turn the ball over. When he had pass protection last week, those two same things were true. So the issue with if we were to take an outlook of this, of Geno kind of is at his best when things are kind of all failing around and he can kind of do stuff. But if you give him those things, you haven't given him that environment. So we can't make that determination. If he'd actually gotten a functional offensive line, and again, we come back to Jeffrey, why I harp on this offensive line so ardently, why I hammer this so much, is because it prevents you from making the proper assessments downwind like you would like to do. Because you got to get stuck up at this frontal part, this impediment part, this league worst unit part, which then affects everything else in such a major way, in a major, major way. But we haven't given him that environment. And no, I think in the few times where you have given him that environment, Jeffrey, and given him the calm waters and given him the run game, you've seen a Geno Smith excel. That first 10 games that he took over as a starter where perhaps he was at his best, that was the one time you've given him, the one time you've given him in this 3-year stretch, true, competent offensive line play. So I think no. In fact, the data has, in that small sample size as it may be, that 10 games there, or that one game you have here with the Cardinals there last week, that small sample size actually indicates that if you give him that steadiness, if you take that chaos away, you'll get a better version of that player, which is also what we would logically expect too, right? Thank you for the donation. Santosh, when is it time to start holding Woolen accountable for getting cooked every game? I think it's happening, man. I think that we're already on this channel, and I think you're going to hear more about it from people that there's been plenty of moments this year that have been not great moments from Woolen. He's not giving up a lot of yards in coverage. He's given up a lot of touchdowns. I think he had as bad a half of football as I've seen from him in his professional career. He's not taking steps forward as a player, and I don't know that he's really a fit to this defense when it's all said and done. Very talented, very capable in certain ways, but the fatal flaws within his game might just be just a bit too much. You know, he fell so hard. Ha ha. Kieran says the silver lining, our third string center looked better than Tomlinson. Well, that's true. Kevin, that was an atrocious ball from Geno for that interception. It was an inexcusable throw. Long live the king. Thank you for the $2 donation. Untimely week for the defense to make a nickname. Yeah. Got to be careful of those nicknames. Make sure that you're locked in before you put the nickname in. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You want to be calling yourself the death zone and then die the next week. That's a tough look, King. Thanks for the donation, man. Mariah says, how can I feel better about this loss? I'm so sad and disappointed. I think you're right to feel bad about it. As many are feeling off this, Mariah, it doesn't just feel like a loss, but a little bit of a, got exposed. We're not a team that's going to round into contending shape this year, so hope it feels a little bit like you're mourning a bit of this 2024 season coming off this loss. And I don't think that that's the wrong outlook here. I think that there's a little bit behind that, unfortunately. We're not done yet, but this was a bad loss. Nick says, geez, you're really obsessed over this Sam Howell thing. They basically already lost the game because of Geno's bonehead interception. Why does it matter? Matters on a couple points, Nick, because a lot of the discussion that we're having about this isn't just about the performance of Sam Howell today, but also about the future of the quarterback position, which I hopefully don't have to tell you is a major point of discussion within the fan base right now, and both for what they're deciding to do in the future of the team. So Sam's a guy that a lot of people think, Nick, is a potential guy as that answer into the future, something worth turning over, and these kind of performances give you an indication one way or the other on that. Nick says, can you talk about the piss poor run defense or the offensive line playing horrible? Throwing Sam under the bus is dumb at this point. I don't know at what point or another I've told or said that Sam Howell's the reason we lost this game. But no, I'm not going to if you're going to paint what I say poorly to how I say it. And I've spent 3 hours on this stream, Nick, covering everything. I go long on my post-game discussions so that we can cover every topic. And certain discussions are going to be turned over more than others. There's a big question coming into this game about Sam Howell and his performance. There's a difference of opinion in the fan base. We've gotten some information. We've not been given a lot of new information on Sam, so we're going to discuss that. One play does not determine the game. So what you're trying to mention about the interception and the bone interception, the reason you lose, it's not the reason you lost. I think the other reasons that you provided there, the piss poor run defense and the offensive line, are certainly at the forefront of why you lose. Absolutely. But why Sam is an important discussion, as I just saw above to your other comment above, is because there's a consideration here about not just right now and the here and now with Sam, but about the direction you take this offseason. And those that would make the argument that this is a guy who should be part of that future and outlook of that future for the position. And so it's really a very important a topic on the channel, I think. So if you're taking from what I'm just saying here, Nick, that I'm throwing Sam under the bus, then you're not hearing what I'm saying, and you're taking what I'm in the wrong direction of things. But it is going to be a point of discussion, and when I run my post-game discussions 3 or 4 hours, there's going to be topics that we're going to talk very long about and thorough about. Love the energy tonight, Nick. Crashy, the way we came out of half and stopped the run was impressive, though. They did find some adjustments in the second half in the run game. I do think that though the run game was bad and starting out and setting the tone in the run game of allowing Jacobs to go off like he did wasn't great. They did do a good job overall, I think, of not allowing the run game to go insane where it's 9 yard after 9 yard run. It was a lot of times just the 3 yards in a cloud of dust. The bottom line on this game, you had him down to 3.6 yards per carry to Josh Jacobs, which is an overall pretty good day. 19 was the long. There's a couple bad runs in there. I wouldn't excuse the run game. I don't think that the team in general, overall, and by and large, I think just as a team problem, you weren't ready to play in this game. But they found some adjustments in the second half, got a little bit better with it. I thought the defense stood up and gave the offense a chance there to come back into this. The offense just couldn't make it stick. Defense could also do well not to get them behind the ball, but they did. Nina says, in a team effort, you rely on others to do your job as well. If one mechanic fails, it all struggles and gets messy. That's what makes football so great, frustrating and confusing, and they're humans. Yeah, it is. It's a complicated sport. It's hard to break down, and it's hard to always, parse out the blame in the appropriate areas to make sure that you're concentrating on the right matters that need to be fixed, or were the reasons for why you won or why you lost. It's tough. That boy could watch, looking at play-by-play, seems the defense settled in the second half, and had Geno in, we would have at least made it close. I think we would have made a little bit more of a run in it if Geno had been out there. I do. I don't know that you would have brought it back or gotten the win, and I think the Packers, might have done a little bit like we did with the Cardinals last week, where they were able to take their foot off the gas, maybe a little bit of that as well. Helped out the defense. I think the defense found a little bit of resiliency too, so it's a bit of both maybe. But I do think that you find a few more points than 13 if Geno's in there. Keon Lund, thank you for the $2 donation. It feels like 2011 instead of 2012. Yeah, probably a little bit more like that than the other, I would say. A little more like the other. Well said, Keon. Young, I used to be a Reek stan, but I'm rapidly becoming more open to moving him if there's an opportunity to. I was the same way. I got a lot of high hopes on this guy, and from a development standpoint, and being new to the cornerback position, having that sparkling opening rookie year, and you look at him and you go, boy, the sky feels like the limit on this guy. But I don't think that we've seen that progression from him. I think that there's even been some regression from him. And it becomes more of an important decision because you have the potential of a contract extension with him this upcoming offseason. You have the potential of maybe there's some trade value to give versus the contract extension. If you find a team out there that likes him and you can get him at his highest potential value, or at least high value. I don't know if that's possible. But I think that's becoming more and more a bit of the potential here with Reek, as you're just having too many of these moments that really comes down to the bottom line for me is that the tackling, the getting off blocks, the tenaciousness as a tackler, these things are always going to be a thing that you're always struggling to put him up to a bare minimum state on. So then he's got to be phenomenal as a cover guy. He's got to be phenomenal then in his ability to take away the ball to offset some of that deficiency in his game. And unfortunately, I don't think it's enough to offset. Purple Haze, what was the new nickname for the defense? They called it the death zone. David Tolman, would you agree that we need an O-line? David, when it comes to the O-line, and when it comes to, let's say, blame out of this game, if you want to put the offensive line at the forefront of this game as to why you lost, I mean, hell, 33 total drops back, 7 sacks. You're getting sacked once every 4 passing attempts. I have no problem tossing it on the back of this offensive line with the forefront of this. And I have, David, for multiple years. I mean, why this isn't a topic maybe at the forefront of why right now why I'm talking about it is because it's one that I cover every single show that I get on here with. It tends to be the place we lead, which is that I've asked for multiple off seasons in a row, David. Every off season I put together, here's my off season plan for John Schneider. Here's what I propose he does. And every off season I say, for the last couple of off seasons, make offensive line the priority. Whatever your plan is this off season, make your offensive line and building the offensive line into a strength your priority. And John refuses to do it every single off season I brought it up. And it's going to be, again, the same thing I say this off season. Make it a priority. Overdo it. Take it past the line of bare minimum and blast it past that line. Because there's so much of a requirement there for how bad it is. How bad it's been. I hope he will finally, David, but it's the biggest issue on this team right now. It's the biggest thing holding them back, even beyond the quarterback position, from becoming a contender. If you put any quarterback behind this offensive line, it ain't going to work. Put any QB back on, they're not getting to contending status. So until they address it, we ain't going nowhere. And it needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed majorly. It ain't just, sign the one free agent out there and then go draft a guy and it'll be fine. It needs to be hammered. 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 Playlist Trav says, this stream is like therapy for me, as always. Appreciate you. Well, I appreciate you too, Trav, and thank you for being a member of the channel as well, man. Even on nights like this, I have a lot of fun doing this channel. And I know it's not fun turning over these topics, but it's a lot of fun to do this, chopping up with y'all. Motive, I like the Packers coach. He had the best quote. Reporter asked him what went right in the first half. His reply, everything. Yeah, I mean, I think that's as good a first half as you could ask from a Packer on the road prime time to ask for from their perspective. It's a good answer. Very good answer. Nina says, yeah, the Packers were worthy adversary. We had a chance to make the win ours. It's not like we're the Giants or something. Nope. I think we can stand with these teams. We just have to fix some of the gaping kind of wounds that cause us to kind of bleed out in these weeks like this. Low King, I think Tariq Woolen fell off because of all the flags they've been calling on him the last 2 years, and he's lost some confidence. Could be that, Low King. Certainly know that with the cornerback position, that's a position as much as anyone on the football field that is requiring of confidence because it's such a hard one with you being on that island. And very well may be the case with him a little bit. Very well maybe. Young, yeah, we also made the Giants look good in our house. That one sucked. Dune Moose Packers came into this clearly looking like they had a plan, and they did. Their opening drive with Jacobs running at will broke us for the rest of the game. It did. Yeah. Kind of just took our spirit right from the jump on that one. Boy says, what worries me is where do we start with the O-line? We need to fix every position except left tackle. How do you realistically fix this? I think that it comes down to more than specifically going player by player with you, po' boy. And I know I'm a bit simplistic on this, but that's where sometimes we can get to a place like this where it looks so very complicated to fix an issue. And it might seem that way. And it's not going to be easy, but that's why I think you go to the simplified state of this to address this. First, priority levels. The Seattle Seahawks offensive line has not been a priority point for 10 years. We make it a priority. Okay. Secondary part to be informed by the first part. What does that mean tangibly by how we go about our business to get that done? What is it that we've done over the past 10 years that's been a common thread that we fix to get that done? This is very easy. Very easy. The Seattle Seahawks have spent the last 10 years drafting solely to build their offensive line. They put a bare minimum number of picks versus other NFL teams in this league as far as early picks go to the offensive line, and then try to get a bunch of picks at the end of the draft and have that one guy you grab early and the couple guys you grab at the end. You put that together, you slam it on the field, okay? Then you go out and you find some old ass sucker, some guy that's got like, his ankles are being held together by glue, like Mike Iupati, or Gabe Jackson, who's lost like 3 steps and gained about 20 pounds over the course of his career, or Laken Tomlinson, who can't move from point A to point B without stumbling over his feet. And you pay those guys a 1-year, $3 million contract. I'm telling you, they've taken the same approach on this on a yearly basis, year after year. So it doesn't make it too hard to prove to be an investigation here. We're not trying to solve the Jack the Ripper case here. Yeah, it's hard to build an offensive line, but it very simply comes down to this. You've gone through the draft solely as your method for building your line, and you've gone with cheap, old-ass free agents who got nothing left in the tank. So stop that shit. Stop that. Here's where it goes. There's 3 ways to be able to improve any positional group in the NFL. 3 methods. Number 1 is the draft. Number 2 is a trade. The Seattle Seahawks have made one true top-end trade for an offensive lineman in 10 years. Hell, I think it would go even further than that. It's been 20 years probably, to be honest with you. But let's just go 10 for the sake of this. 10 years. The one guy you did, Dwayne Brown, you overpaid for him, and it's still a smashing success. So, draft, trade with aggression, and because we go back to point 1 being that it's a priority number 1, you're willing to overpay a little bit to get this addressed. Number 3 is free agency. The Seattle Seahawks have not signed a big free agent deal for an offensive lineman wait for it. Hold on, wait for it. Over 15, 16 years. So when you look at this offensive line and why it's in crap shape, why it's not good, why it could get so much better. And yeah, it ain't easy to get it done, po' boy, from the standpoint of just because you put the assets into it does not guarantee that the offensive line will be good. But it takes it a whole lot further than you going bare minimum at the position, than you spending as little as anybody out there in the NFL on that offensive line. You utilize this one method, utilize the other 2 methods, incorporate all 3, and you will see a good offensive line out there for your Seattle Seahawks. They have been unwilling to do so, though, and unwilling to do so for well over 10 years. David says, I agree. John won't do anything. We won't go to the Super Bowl, let alone the playoffs, if we can't get an actual new O-line. I'm not a bandwagon, but I agree with you 100%. It's frustrating the hell out of me, David, and it's one that I probably don't still talk enough about, or as much as some folks like Nick above want me to speak more about this on, because it's just that I talk about it because I'm blue in the face, and it's been years of me talking about it. And I released a video 2 months ago, David, one of my uploads for the channels that I did, and it's a negative video, and I hate doing negative videos for the channel, but the video was labeled neglect in regards to the offensive line and John's approach to the offensive line. This has been neglect. This is not you misevaluating or dumping assets that didn't pay out off on the deal. This is neglect for the position. Who's the last rookie offensive lineman we drafted, David, that we paid to a second contract? Yeah, it's neglect. And it's one of the places where I give a lot of room to John and say, hey, well, he's not all bad. And there's some good you can find this guy. And I'm not in on that, you know, should be under the hot seat guy, but it gets really hard. Gets really damn hard to excuse his approach to the offensive line. Neglect is the word I keep coming back to. Long live the king. Thank you for the $2 donation. Long live. If we make the playoffs, how can we beat Green Bay Packers? You got to stop the run. You got to run the ball. And if you don't stop the run, you don't give them to third and longs, you don't do anything, that offense is going to be very, very effective against you. They're going to bleed the clock out. They're going to control the time of possession. Likewise, if you're going to become one-dimensional and bail out on your rushes and your ability to run the ball against this Packer defense, you're going to be cooked quick. So it was the key coming into this game, King. It's a big reason why you lost this game. You rush for 80 yards coming into this. They go for well over 140 yards. Almost double your rushing output. You lose the game. Sometimes it can be just as simple as that. Jeffrey Brockman, Brandon, do you remember a time when the Hawks played better on the road than at home? No, I don't think so. It might have been that case in 2020, but that was, of course, the vid year. But other than that, no, I can't think of a time. Max Yeager, Packers smart and took the ball to the crowd. It took the ball and take the crowd out of the game real fast. Yes, they did, Max. Yes, they did. Crashy says, I don't see us beating the Rams with their D-line. I don't either. Me neither. Brandon says, yeah, one guy was the key to the success of the Packers and everything went right for the Packers in the first half. Blech. Yeah, true. Very true. Yeah, boy, people may be disappointed in this outcome, but I'm excited to see how the defense bounces back against the Vikes. Me too, Dad boy. Hopefully they got an answer out there. Tough fight. Nina says, foot and mouth so hard. I forgot we lost the Giants this season in a horrible way. Yeah, that's probably the most brutal loss of the season, to be honest with you. You lose the Lions, you lose the Niners when they're more stronger than they were that next matchup. You lose to this Packer team, you go, okay, well, those are good teams. But the Giants won, you go, oof. They dog walked us up the field with their offense. How? No Malik Neighbors in that game. How? Chris says we definitely need a left guard and center unless they when they try out Haynes at either spot. Right guard could be LeMahias, give him more time the rest of the season. Yeah, I think with Haynes and LeMahias both, I like their upside. I'm hopeful for their upside. I can't count on their upside being realized next year. And what you would do in the past is look at those guys and go, oh, one of those two will be the starter for us on one of those two guard spots. I think instead what you got to do is we got to deal with both those two guard spots, and those guys can fit in where they fit in. To avoid, again, at the forefront of this, Chris, would be to avoid that bare minimum approach thing that they've gone at with it. Purple Haze, number 11. Classy fan base here. Should be a close matchup next week. Usually is. Well, yes, absolutely, Purple Haze. Best of luck to you guys next week. We got another tough matchup with you guys. I know you're going to play us hard. Hopefully we can give you a much better fight than we gave the Packers today. Max says you can't really trade for O-line. The best teams draft and build the O-line like the Packers. Well, I just gave an example there, Max. So kind of why I wanted to try to show Max is that this is a 10-year thing is for the very reason is to avoid kind of what you just said on that point. In that when it's 10 years of this, it's not merely a year or two where you couldn't get a trade done for an offensive lineman. And the one time you made the trade, Max, you had to overpay for him. And this is really, I think, beyond it's hard to trade for O-line. What it really comes down to, and this is backed up by John Schneider's comments and saying guards are kind of overdrafted, kind of overpaid, is that he doesn't want to pay the prime pump prices for those offensive linemen. Because with Dwayne Brown, you moved Dwayne Brown initially for a second-round pick in Jeremy Lane. Jeremy Lane failed the physical. Texans, I think, had some second thoughts about the trade where they're like, we should have gotten some more back for Dwayne Brown than that second-round pick. You had to throw a third-rounder back in there. You overpaid for Dwayne Brown. You want to go get an offensive lineman on the open market and make a trade for him, Max, you're going to have to overpay for him. The problem and the reason why they haven't made the trade is not because there's not a trade out there that you can go and make for a team, for a lineman. It's because John doesn't want to overpay to do it. And I get that you don't want to overpay to do it from John's perspective, but any port in an effing storm. You don't develop and you don't draft well enough to sit in that Packer pocket like you're comparing to. You're right, that's the Packer way. But the Packers draft and develop way better than you do. And that's not changing with John anytime soon. He's not going to turn around this offseason and become a master drafter at offensive line. So, do you overpay a little bit for a guy that's going to be available on the market somewhere? Who gives you true value at that point? Or do you go, boy, we don't want to give up that extra third round pick. I just want to give up just the second round pick and have that be enough. So, and you can absolutely not push back at me at all, Max, for sure, right, on the fact that they don't spend on the open market. They don't go to look to free agency at all either. You've in 15 years, the standardized deal you hand out is a 1-year, $4 million deal. Mike Iupati, Luke Jokel, Gabe Jackson, Lincoln Tomlinson, Evan Brown, Austin Blythe. I can go name after name after name on this, and it's the same pathway and approach you've taken. That's the important part of this, Max, is that I'm pushing so hard on this, is that you can't just stay in the same path you've been taking because this has ultimately led to your failures at the position. You got to change course if you want a success, right? It's the old quote, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and having it fail and expect it to magically solve itself. It's failing. We got to change course. So you're right, it's hard to do trades in the NFL, but it's not impossible. And if you have a willingness to slightly go over the top, to slightly give a little bit more sugar on the top of that deal, you can get it done. You can go find yourself quality. Chiefs probably gave up a little bit more than they wanted for an Orlando Brown a couple of years ago to the Ravens, right? Probably didn't want to give up quite that much for him. First round pick, I think, is what it cost him. But did they look back at that trade and they go, oh, we overpaid for Orlando Brown? Guy who's not even there right now. No. They're happy they paid the price for that because they got him a Super Bowl win. It's worthwhile, but you got to be willing to do the overpay. And that's the place I think John's come to there, Max, where they don't. Max says Packers will win the Super Bowl, probably. They have too many players. We'll see. We'll see with them. I mean, you speak about their development. That's the one thing with the Packers, in addition to that, a team that doesn't tend to go out in that free agent place to kind of address that or address receiving and all that. We'll see if they've got enough as they lean heavily in that their own development cycle of things. Some ways because they have to, because they're a small market team, but other ways because it's a tactful decision on their part too. And it has worked, and they've got a strong team, and they can make some noise, Max, in the playoffs. They can. But they have their own sort of sometimes holes in this philosophy at times that get exposed too, including having two of the top maybe 10 quarterbacks this sport has ever seen over the last 30 years and having only 2 Super Bowl championships to show for it. Eddie says, I was at the Giants game in 2005 where the 12th man was born, and also the Sherman Tip game versus the Niners in the NFC title game. Being at the game tonight was cutting, seeing how quiet the crowd was. Gutting, seeing how quiet the crowd was. I'm hearing it from a few people in the chat tonight, Eddie, and it's disconcerting to hear. I'm not happy hearing it. It makes me sad. We've lamented a little bit throughout the show today, and I think we just kind of come to the conclusion on this at times of there's not a lot that can be done about this. It's drifting in this direction, and it is what it is, and there's just not a lot that can be done to sort of change it. It's unfortunate, but I think it's the reality of our situation here. It's definitely changed. Poboy says, so what you're saying is sign Trey Smith at all costs. I'm fine with that. Trey Smith, Tevin Jenkins, there are options that you can find. But yeah, I this is where I would be offloading. For instance, Uchenna Nwosu, Draymond Jones. You've dumped a ton of money into that edge group return. You're not getting the returns from Uchenna. You're not getting the returns from Draymond Jones. Okay, take that, put that into the offensive line. We don't lose anything off defense. We don't lose nothing. That's one little spot right there. There's your big contract you sign out in free agency, Younged. Or not Young, but Poboy. So yeah, there's a few different guys I'll be looking at on the offensive line. Center's a little bit tougher because there's not as many free agents out there on that, but there's some guards. There's some interesting guards. Robin says, put Pumpkin on the O-line, please. She's pretty wide. You're right about that, Robin. She's got some girth to her. She anchors like nobody's business, I'm telling you. Otis says, Pumpkin would be on defense. She'd be a game breaker. She would. The change of direction, the quickness. And she's got the beef to bring the hits. Problem is that you have to grease the ball up with salmon. That's the only downside. Brandon says, we'd have 2 big cats on the interior with D and a Pumpkin. Young Pumpkin signs a 4-year, 500 pounds of catnip per year deal with the Seattle Seahawks. Dune Moose says the Packers are also publicly owned. The management is accountable to the fan base. Packers do things differently. They do. And look, for a small market team, as we've seen so many small market teams fail to ever even get into that Super Bowl run, right? Cincinnati, they've gotten to a couple Super Bowls, but they've not gotten a win. Buffalo, a couple, but you've not gotten the win. Arizona Cardinals. We can go through some small market teams that have just not sniffed it. And to the Packers' credit, with their process and with their model, it's been a tried and true one that at least once every 10 years you go get it Super Bowl. You know, if they get it, and if it works again here with Love in the next couple of years, it will look like an awesome model of a business because they're not given that great advantage of having a big market and endless coffers that they can pull upon. They've got to be smart in how they spend their money and how they operate. Robin says, that's a steal for Pumpkin. I know. We got to lock this contract in now, Robin, you know, so we can get a good value based here. King says, I think I'm officially out on Reek 2. He's costing us in these big moments. Hard to excuse, man. The coverage stuff has grown to be a bigger issue as the year's gone along. The tackling stuff still is what it is. And you're into year 3 of past his rookie deal. It's getting to that point in time where you got to make a decision. And there are good things that he does. It's not that he's a bad player, but it does get tough as a decision here. Cheeseheads took over our stadiums as Crashy. They did. Motive a few more salmon steaks, and I think she could play D-line. I think so, man. She's a big girl. I get chided whenever I take her to the vet, whenever there's a checkup or something. It's like, she's a big girl, isn't he? You've been feeding her, haven't you? I mean, she likes salmon treats. I mean, I don't know. You really shouldn't be feeding her that much. You know that, right? I know, but they tell me on the chat to feed her. It's the chat. They say, give her salmon. I got it. Who's the chat? It's for my show. Can't be feeding her. She's a big girl. She needs to lose some weight. I know, but she gets so hungry. She's a hungry girl. Don't tell Santa Cruz. Why don't we just rebuild and trade everyone? Maybe the path is rebuilding it. Daniel says, can we also just draft guys we think are going to be good? Like we scouted that center from KC. We also scouted Quinn Miners, who is one of the best guards in the NFL right now. These are no-brainers, and John can't see it, and they are mid-round picks. Yeah, we've had some good consensus players here, Daniel, and that's something that I've learned a lot about the draft, and something that I think NFL organizations would be smart to lean more towards is that you have your individual boards where all of these teams try to think that they're smarter than everybody else and that they're ahead of the curve on all of their scouting and evaluation process. But what we learn more often than not, whether you go through the experts or how teams draft, consensus boards, the cumulative brain power will spit out what the trueness is of where these guys should be picked and where they're ranked and where they should go. And it's a new thing. It's a new kind of model to operate off of. But had they been operating more off of that kind of model, I think it would have taken them to a couple of those different picks at the time, Daniel, to your point. Randy Cuss says, give Pumpkin a treat. We'll give him a treat right after the show here. I promise. Margin says Reek was drunk. Maybe. You heard from Marshawn. He used to do a couple shots of what? Hennessy or whatever for the game. Maybe Reek was like, no, just one more. No, wait. One more. No, one more. I need one more. Okay, I'm in the mindset now. Let's go feel and figure this out. With my outside corner today? My slot? Am I falling today? Am I falling? Did I say fallen? Am I following? I don't like the chains on the players either, Crashy. It was making me laugh about Kyler Murray the last couple of weeks. Every time they flashed him, he's got he's got the what was that 80s band, or not the 80s, but the 80s rap group. God, I can't think of their name. But they wore the chains, you know. Oh boy, you'd think wearing 5 pounds of chains would kind of weigh you down a little bit, you know. Do you have to swag that hard out on the field for that loss of speed? It's got to cost you somehow. I think JS is a top 10 general manager. Yeah, I think he still is as well, too. And just as the theme of this show and the theme of this team, the theme of the moment of where we're at, you know, what does his fatal flaw hold him back from all the good that he does do? And on that answer, I don't think so, would be my response. But I'm starting to get worried. Daniel, I honestly think Rick is just happy to be starting the NFL. This is more than he ever dreamed of, and he's content. I don't think we can pay him. It'll just get worse. That's what they say, man. It's whatever you are as a player, and former players tell us a lot. And whatever you are as a player before you're paid, you're going to be more of that once you do get paid. It doesn't turn you in the opposite direction of things. It's a little bit of the feel that I also get from Reek a little bit too. I've got some of these sneaking suspicions that you do there as well, Daniel, on this. And when it comes down to then paying him, you can't do that if that's the case. And I think that this is where this is going to slide organizationally in their approach this offseason with him. And it'll be disappointing if it goes that direction because he is so talented and there's so much real true upside there in his game and ability. But more reason here to believe that not going to quite get to that upside by the limitations within his game. Run DMC. Thank you. You saved me on that one, dude Moose. Kyler out there like run DMC. Like, dude, you're already 5'9" and 180 pounds. Like, you adding an extra 10 pounds is much different than the guys at 230, 245 adding. Like, that's weighing you down, man. You can see a little extra sway in his little toddler run. Longlim says, right, you ain't no Justin Jefferson. Take your flashy chains off. Exactly. You better be that good if you're going to wear the chains. Sam, do you think our season is over after this week? What is the wearing the chain? What is the purpose? Like, what is the purpose to? Why? Just why? So these girls will see me, right, man? You know what I mean? Like the girls, they'll see me on the field, right? And I'm gonna be glitzed up. I'm gonna be diamonds. I'm gonna be icy. It's gonna be sparkling. And they're gonna be like, yo, you look at Jefferson, he's making catches and he's icy, and that's gonna make that girl want me then, you know? That's gonna make them girls want me offline, you know? That's gonna make them say, I gotta hit this guy up on his DM because I see that spicy, I see that flash, and I see him making them catches. It's just too much for me, right? It's just too much for me. I just gotta have him. I gotta get that man. Like, is that what they think in their mind? Is that the true draw at the end of the day? Like, you're an NFL football player, okay? So stupid. Sam says, do you think our season is over after this week? I'm not confident at all for the Vikes game. Whenever this team gives me optimism, such as going into this Packers matchup, I get disappointed. Yeah, they've definitely pulled the rug out from us a couple of times here this year, Sam, and it doesn't make it easy, does it? Because you go, God, I'm trying to figure out what you guys are. We're 14 weeks into this thing, and I don't know what the hell I've got on my hands. The season's not over, but I don't know what we're going to get on a weekly basis. And it's a long shot right now to believe that this is a team that could make any noise in the playoffs if they had Geno back. And if Geno doesn't come back, I don't think that we're going anywhere fast. So season's not over, Sam. Keep fighting, keep scratching, keep crawling. Anything can happen in this wild-ass year we've gone through in 2024. But it's discouraging as well. Everyone's worst nightmare. That's right. Nick, it feels like Tariq Woolen could single-handedly cost this team a playoff position somehow. Well, I mean, you know, the Rams game, for instance, that's a key moment in that game where your head's getting turned around for no good reason in that moment. You're to play your man coverage and press coverage, and you're to stay on top in that moment. And he takes a peek back. It's a little bit like today, flipping around in his hips in that moment in this game. And, you know, he's given up his share of touchdowns. He's had some mistakes out there. Hell, you had a freaking penalty in this game where he hit the quarterback late in addition to it. It's the brain boneheaded stuff that's showing up with Reek now. This has kind of been new. You know, the lack of tackling stuff's always kind of been around there, but the boneheaded stuff, getting beat on the 9 route and having a penalty called on you because you got beat to try to catch up with 10 seconds to go at the end of the half. What are you doing? What are you thinking in that moment? And I don't think he's doing a lot of thinking in that moment. Finals, this felt just like the Bills game, felt just like the Detroit Lions game. Even the 49ers game. I mean, these are all carbon copies of one after another. Crashy, would you trade Reek, K9, and an edge rusher for someone elite? All day, every day. I don't think that Derek Hall is taking steps forward this year at this point thoroughly. We've gone from this being like, wow, Derek Hall's about ready to really turn it on, to the oven's gone off. It's gone cold. I don't know what's gone on with him, but he is completely backward stepped in a major way as far as his run defending, and he's not giving you anything as far as a pass rusher, basically. Maybe like one pressure a game. So, yeah, I would absolutely make that trade right now, Crashy. Yes, sir. Dude, we need Mac to have a true full offseason to further establish himself with personnel, philosophy, and system. Yeah, Mac's been fine. He's not part of our problems right now. He's part of the solution for sure. Young says, true, I think Reek just plays off his height and athleticism and hopes is enough. I'm sure he has the drive. I'm not sure he has the drive in him to want to be the best. He seems like a good dude, but it's just hard to see it. Yeah, he doesn't seem like a bad guy at all. He seems like a good guy. That's for sure. I don't want to paint him as being a bad character guy, but I don't know that he's hungry like you need to be hungry to be great in this league, or to be where he needs to drive his game to improve it, to overcome what's been deficiencies in his game. And that can go that way. We know this is a truth. We know that there's guys in this league that play the sport that don't necessarily love the sport. They like getting paid. They like being professionals. They like the notoriety that comes with it, but they don't necessarily like playing the game. And I don't know if I watch a guy in Woolen and I go, there's a guy that loves playing the game. I watch a guy in Witherspoon. There's a guy that loves playing the football game. There's a guy that's at all times connected to what's going on in the field and engaged. And there's a big difference between him and Woolen in that respect. Sam says, this game gave me the exact same vibes as Thanksgiving last year. Color rush unis, prime time at home, hyped up extremely. Pain. Lots of pain, man. Lots of pain. Very true. Sam says, yeah, it's difficult when we're so inconsistent. It has indeed been up and down. Yeah, it has. Hard to get a feel for things. Rhino says, Reek definitely relies on his height and athleticism. Do you think Byron Murphy will ever live up to his potential, like people saying he's Aaron Donald? I don't think the Aaron Donald comparisons were ever fair, finals. They were never fair. Aaron Donald's a generational player. He's one of the true best defensive players that have ever played the sport, the best three tech at the very least that's ever played the sport. And so you were never looking at Byron Murphy as that being the guy that he was going to become. That's a once-off as far as I'm concerned. But with that said, Byron's got a lot of potential, and it's not his fault this year that he hasn't realized it as much. Leonard Williams is having a really great year from the three tech position. Byron Murphy's main position is three tech. He can play some nose tackle, but he's a three tech. The team is by and large putting him at the nose tackle role where he's having to take on double teams blocks and can't do as much from a productivity standpoint. That's not him. He's just being played out of position a little bit, which Aaron Donald in his first year in this league was played as a three tech. He wasn't played as a nose tackle. So it's by necessity they're doing that, but he'll be better once they can get him more to three tech. Problem there though is Leonard Williams isn't going away anytime soon. And so there was only so many snaps to be had over there at three tech. Sam, I'm praying Geno's healthy. I love Geno. He truly does a lot for this team despite his mistakes, such as today. Do you think he'll ever be under center next season? Or is a quarterback change coming for Seattle? I don't have a really great read which way they're going to roll in this, Sam. Some of it's based upon what he's going to want to ask for as far as to get paid on another contract. Some of it's whether they want to pay that kind of money at this point in time. Some of it's where they look at the team and the rebuilding process, how far away they think they truly are. There's about 7 or 8 real big questions that all have to get answered to kind of come to an answer on that question, Sam, and I'm unsure all across the board. I don't think Geno has done enough to make it a no-brainer that he comes back next year at this point. I think he's played well. I think he's done well in the Storm. I think today's another representation of that when you see Sam play versus him play. But it's not an easy decision when it comes down to that amount of money that you're going to be shelling out for a guy. And if you're going to shell out that kind of money, you want to typically be sure or as close to sure as you can be. And I just don't know if we're at that state right now. Robin says, with regard to the trade question, who or what position would you trade for? Offensive line, or I'd look for an elite edge. Offensive line first, though, is the priority. If I can't pull off that, then certainly an elite edge would be where I would go, maybe on the other side of that. You may not be able to find an elite edge. I think you can find an offensive lineman. I think the key on getting that kind of deal done for an offensive lineman will be a willingness to slightly, and I say slightly, overpay Robin. You know, be willing to make him an offer, a Godfather kind of offer that they can't refuse. But it would be offensive line. John Mo Flowers, y'all should go for Burrow next offseason and get him out of Seattle, Cincinnati. I'd do that all day, Jamo, if we could. I don't know if Cincinnati will let him go, but I certainly would jump on him. 2 feet. Brandon says, yeah, Aaron Donald was one of the kind, generational talent. Murphy also plays a different position than Donald, but in terms of potential impact, maybe unlikely. Yeah, I don't think, and that's okay. He can still be a great professional and still potentially be a great player, but just it more speaks to the special, rarefied air that Donald was in than it is a deficiency in Murphy's game. King says, I certainly hope it's Geno. Sitting through a rebuild ain't fun. No, it's not. And it probably does mean rebuild if you aren't going with Geno. That's one of the important things to consider here on this Geno discussion. Daniel says, if we lose next week to the Vikings, we honestly don't deserve to make the playoffs. Rams won on the road in the snow at the Bills Stadium. We lose 2 home games, then good game. Then GG's. Yeah, maybe not deserving there, Daniel, but there's been times we got in the playoffs where we didn't necessarily deserve it. Still got a playoff win, still could help the team out for the long term, get in the playoffs, getting a playoff win. Just getting the playoffs could be beneficial to the team in the long term, in my opinion. So we may not earn it there, but just get in sometimes. Style points don't exist in football, you know. Finals, I honestly think we should trade for a good draft pick anyway. We can get a quarterback and develop him under Geno Smith for a year or two because Sam Howell is not the answer. No, he's not. And that may be the way they go with this finals. A lot of different directions they can attack the quarterback. That's definitely one that's on the table. Largest of the season is over if Geno's injured? Probably. Yeah, I agree. King, this is our time. The Niners and Rams are falling off. Might be about time, yeah. That'd be the sucky part about going into a rebuild here is you'd be doing it just as the Niners and Rams might be doing it as well. I mean, that once those teams get it then turned around to being ready to go again from their side, it's right the time you are as well, and it doesn't get any easier than at that point. Young says, one piece of good news I saw was that Purdy's asking for a monster deal with San Francisco. Hopefully the Niners make that mistake of giving him the Brinks truck. Laughing out loud. Hopefully that would make this better. But boy, I want to make a splashy trade for stud in free agency or the draft, but at the same time can't tell if it would be a decision made out of emotions for this year or actual need. Do you prefer draft or free agency? Well, I think that first to your point on the trade, I don't want to make a trade out of desperation. So you don't do it just to make a trade. You do look to target something like, with an offensive lineman, for instance, po' boy, you're targeting something that you may be giving up a lot for, but it's like the Dwayne Brown, you know what you're getting. It's not a trade that's going to be like Jimmy Graham, where I'm trading for a guy who's a slot receiver that I'm going to turn into an inline tight end. Or I'm going to trade for Jamal Adams, a guy that's going to spend a lot of time around the line of scrimmage and blitzing, and I'm going to turn him into a cover 2 shell safety. I'm not going to change the guy from what he's done that's made him successful for why I'm trading for him to the spot we're bringing him into. And I don't think that's a reaction out of emotions for this year, po' boy. What it is a reaction to is that if you just sort of go trust the process with the offensive line like you've done up until this point, we're going to draft guys, we'll develop guys, we're going to hope for Sato Lamea and Christian Haynes to go forward. We're just going to kind of hope these kind of start to move a little bit more forward. That's the process that you've gone in the past. That's going to fail. So trading for guys might not be a success. Signing guys might not be a success, but it will be one thing, a different approach than the one that you've engaged for 10 years straight. I don't think that that's desperation at that point. I think that that's changing your approach and your ways to how you've tried to address and shorthand the position in recent given history. Sam says, I'm disappointed in Howell. I was very high on him and was excited with John trading for him. I genuinely believed he had potential, but he'll come in franchise quarterback, especially sitting behind a vet. I had that same hope too, Sam, but this was a disappointing performance. This was pretty bad. Grashy says, I want Parsons. Parsons would be one of those guys I'd look at. And I think you'd be able to put together a very interesting package where you might not potentially have to really put together a lot of draft capital, give up a little draft capital, include some players that aren't part of your long-term plan here in Seattle, and maybe you can make that deal happen. Long to the King, Hal looks shorter. Am I tripping? He did look kind of short in this game, didn't he? Boy, he felt much smaller when he went out there versus Geno. Daniel, when is the last time DK had a good game? Seems like it's been ages ago. I'm tired of hearing he's deviled. He has not had a good game in 5 games or so. Well, Daniel, I mean, he's come off the pretty major lower leg injury as a torn MCL. I'd reckon to guess that he's not at 100%. 3 targets today, 28 yards. They showed a few cut-ups in this game of him being doubled and even triple teamed on the one big throw down to Jackson Smith. The 25-yarder in this game was on a play where triple coverage was drawn to DK Metcalf. And if a quarterback's going to look over at DK Metcalf and see double team coverages, you're going to go to other places on the football field. That's going to be the nature of playing the quarterback position. It does also feel like to me, since DK has come back, that there's been more of an onus drawn here, Daniel, to featuring Jackson Smith and Jigba. DK has 3 targets in this game. Jackson has 12. So I think that some of this has also been a keynote decision of the offense in the direction that they're looking to go a little bit too with this. Especially seems like some of the stuff that you did with DK early in this season, having him move in motion prior to the snap, having him operate out of the slot, that stuff's been kind of removed in favor in the name of now doing more to feature Jackson. Brandon Jan says, bro, the Niner fans' reactions to Purdy thinking he's worth $60 million a year make my day, especially after today's results. I hope that they sign into that deal. That'd be great to see. That would make me feel warm and fuzzy if he could. Yeah, Herbert's still trying to find a way to thrive. He is. Very talented guy. And just not quite coming together. Can't get an offensive line there to roll right. They put their investment in, but they can't get that thing to just click in. Kieran says, my problem with the offensive line process is good offensive linemen are extremely rare outside of the first 2 rounds, and signing old guys on their last season or 2 is rarely your best option. Yep. Agreed. That's why I say, Kieran, it's going to take them making it priority number 1. Because if you just kind of go, okay, we got our other parts we're going to deal with too. We're going to deal with this thing when we can deal with it first. Hey, priority number 1. Means you got to put a lot of resources behind it to make it brought up to snuff. But I think that that's the requirement from my perspective at this point. Sam says, I'm kind of worried about losing DK. I won't lie. Another guy with decisions coming up this offseason, Sam. That decision is going to come up this offseason. I think they're going to extend him, but we'll have to see. Jeff, do I see Lockett retiring after this year? Yes. 1 catch in this game, 22 yards, 1 target. He's just gone very quiet this year. Very quiet. I think it's winding down. Sam, I was talking to a Niner fan today. He claimed Purdy's a top 10 quarterback at his floor. I laughed in his face like Marshawn. Hey, I hope they keep that mentality, man. That'll be good for us. Phoebe says, B, what would happen if we draft a quarterback and Geno hits free agency and signs with the Niners? What would be Jesse's reaction? Jesse would be upset. He's probably the most anti-Geno guy that of all the anti-Geno folks I've run into, he might be the biggest, most anti-Geno cat there is out there. But he would be very angry, very disappointed. Long live the king. If Cincinnati gives up on Burrow, that franchise should be sold to Toronto. They'll fire Zach Taylor before they trade Burrow. Says Young. Yeah, probably. Chance Brown, thank you for Chance says, what would it take to trade for someone like Quentin Nelson? Probably at this age and where he is right now, you're looking at he's getting close to 30. Probably going to take like a 2nd round pick to do that, I would say. 28 years old. Maybe a 1st. I don't think that the Colts are going to look at wanting to move him, though. They got a young quarterback there. The thing they're not going to look to want to do there is offload their offensive line, but maybe. He's still playing good football. Final says, I think the season is a success. If we go 10-7 or 11-6 and make it to the playoffs, I would love to win, but if we lose, it's air. It was an amazing year for a first-year head coach, just some adjustments. Amen, Finals. It's been a successful first year for this new head coach. Playoffs or not, it's been a solid opening step here for McDonald. Hopefully you can close it well, like you say. get a couple wins at the end of this, go get in the playoffs. That'd be just the greatest exclamation point to a successful season. We'll see if they can do that. We'll see. I want to thank today the sponsor of the show, Underdog Fantasy, for sponsoring us on up through the year. Yeah, if you lost in your fantasy league, if you found yourself out of the mix, I know I lost today. I got hammered. I had a pretty good showing for my players, but I got destroyed. And so if you, like me, looking to recoup a little bit of pride, well, you can go over to Underdog Fantasy today. They'll match you 2-1, put $200 down, $100 back, $500 down, $250 back, all the way up to $2,000 down. They'll match you $1,000 back. Get on there, use my code NEST, or click the description link in the bottom of the section below here in this description section and go directly to the site. They will match you on that 2-for-1. You can still get into a weekly fantasy matchup at the end of the year, recoup some of that pride, get into some of the overs and unders, mix it up with a little bit of basketball in there as well. Go out there and win yourself some money here today. Use my code, win yourself some money, get some money matched, and you support the show at the very same time. A couple other notes as well. Went on Bleacher Report today. I've got also in the description section there a link to the Bleacher Report for a quick breakdown of this game, a little half-hour just wrap up video of this. You got to download the app, but that is available to you there. We got the Hawks Nest Clips channel continuing to go here. I'm putting multiple clips on that channel from these live stream shows every week if you're looking for some chopped up elements of these shows over there on that other side of it. We'll probably get the last couple questions in from you guys here today as we kind of finish this up. If you could, for me too, hit that like button if you haven't already. Big helper to me in getting this channel growing and getting me bigger and bigger here as we are starting to wind down this season. And I'd really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Crashy says, go get Parsons and Trey Smith. And we're talking that right there. Yeah. That right there would have me, that would have my ears perked quite a bit up. And going and getting a guy like an edge rusher like Parsons in that mix and getting more of a real true difference maker on that, I think it'd be mighty helpful. But Trey Smith is solid. He's mobile. He can fit to the scheme. He can do what we need. Meat and potatoes. You're going to have to pay a lot of money to make it happen. He's going to cost a heavy sum, a sumly sum, but it'll be a sumly sum well worth it, in my opinion. Kieran says, yeah, my call was basically finishing right where Carroll left off, which is more or less where we found ourselves. Yeah. You're working off of last year. I think overall, you're largely making progress. You're transitioning to two different systems that we're taking you from much more of a simplified state to much more complex. It's going to take time to do that. You do have a very young NFL roster. There's going to be ups and downs and inconsistency with a young NFL roster. And so all to be expected, but all on the, when it's all said and done, really on the success side of this, on the good side of this, on this being a good season when it's all said and done. We'd love to see playoffs. We'd love to see a division title. It's still there for us to go grab, but that's not what this whole year was built upon. If we were all going to be realistic in our outlook of what is successful for a first-year coach, what's successful for a first-year coach who's the youngest NFL coach in the NFL, who's a first-time head coach in his first stop. That perspective is one that is always very important to keep in mind on this team throughout the course of this season, I think. Brandon Jana, Brandon C., you're the man. Thanks for the streams, bud. Always helps mitigate the nasty taste after a loss. See you on Tuesday. Much love, 12s. Go Hawks. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. Of course, I will be over on the NFC West Roundtable, weekly roundtable that we do over there on that side of it. It's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's a whole separate channel here, so I'll be over on that side of it. But thank you for that, Brandon. Very kind of you to say. Appreciate you. Young says, who was the Bears offensive line free agent you mentioned a few weeks ago, B? Tevin Jenkins is the guy? Yes, it is. That's another guy that would very much work. Left guard. A little bit of a younger guy than a Quentin Nelson type, I believe, just coming off his rookie contract. He's got a little bit of a tiny injury history. It ain't bad, just a little bit. And he is a guy that's former convert from tackle to guard, so he does fit from a mobility standpoint into this scheme. But a guy that I think I might be potentially very interested in here as well. If not, and Trey Smith, you're signing him for the right guard. You still then have to go deal with the left guard position. Go sign a guy like Tevin Jenkins, and now you got Christian Haynes, you got Bradford, got a little bit of some mixed guys in there to kind of work off of. You could still go draft another guy in addition to that to really round it out, but then you got Sato Lamea as well. So it would, I think, structurally kind of settle things out, maybe a little bit more to go with a Jenkins over a Trey Smith, but I'll take either of them. Kieran, I'm still calling John and saying if you pick a running back in the second round, I'm going to slap you. Offense or defensive line or death in the draft. Yes, deal with the trenches, man. You're getting beat up on these games at times, to your point, Kieran, over and over on both sides of the ball in the trenches. It's got to stop. We got to stop getting torn apart in this way. And it's going to take that investment. It's going to take him making that priority. And hopefully John this offseason takes those steps. Hopefully he finally, comes to that Jesus moment of, I've tried to avoid this, many years over. Now I've got to really take a look at this and go at it. Finals says, would you trade DK for a high pick in this year's draft for like a Cam Ward? No, I wouldn't. I don't see any real defining blue chip prospect in this draft that would make me feel or be pulled to do that. Finals. DK Metcalf is a guy that I think is more valuable to you here as the team than what you get as far as in trade capital return for him. I don't think you're going to get very much in return. I mean, for instance, to the baseline of your point, you probably could only hope to get like a late first round pick for DK and maybe like a late third round pick thrown on top of that. Don't want to do that. I'd much rather be, not pulling away and creating more holes on this team that we got to address, but dealing with the current holes that do exist. And I think DK can be part of the future and part of what helps you win football games. And I would sign him to an extension myself. I think with Cam Ward, that's top 5 city. You're looking at those guys going finals. People don't want to believe this with Shedeur and Cam, but I see this every year. I see fans go through the same weird process where they'll look at the Kubacks and then, this guy's not worth being a first round pick. This guy's not worth being a top 15 pick. This guy's not worth being a top 10 pick. And then you end up at the end of it and you go, oh my God, we just saw 6 quarterbacks taken in the first 12 picks. It's just the way that this stuff goes. And so those guys will be long gone. Cam and Shedeur will be long off the board for whatever pick that you would get for DK in return. Alex, hey Brandon, I love your content by always being 100% with us. I believe McDonald is the right coach for this organization. It's a new era. My 12s, don't be too hasty. Our team lost, but we are still winning. I love it. Great thoughts from you, Alex. I really appreciate the kind words. I echo and feel exactly where you feel on this. It's a year we didn't know what we were going to have in McDonald. We didn't know where this was going to go exactly. We were hopeful. We certainly didn't know, though. You went for the big swing with him as a head coach. You went for that upside with him as a head coach. And I think that he's rewarded you for that. So very encouraged for the future here, Alex. Fans should be very encouraged for the future. This is a tough loss. No, I'm not going to try to turn people away from that. It is a tough loss. But the team's in a really good position for the future here, and even for the future of this season where you still have an opportunity to make some noise this year, as long as those odds might look as we kind of stand here coming off this real tough loss. Jamel Johnson says, hit that like button, y'all. This man works hard for us. Well, thank you for that, Jamal. Please do, folks, as you do walk on the door out tonight, hit that like button. Small thing, big thing, helps out my channel, helps me show up on those algorithm searches of those fellow Seahawks fans out there on this evening, looking to make some sense of this loss, looking to try to figure out what it all means. But thank you, Jamel. I appreciate that. Sam says, appreciate you as usual. It's always good watching your streams and recaps, keeping it real. I'm from Australia, but these Hawks are a big part of my life. Until next time. Well, peace out to you too, Sam. I know we've got a big-time Hawk contingent out there in Australia, which brings a big old smile to my face. I thank you for that, man. We got Paul. We got Megan. I think we got a couple other folks out there in Australia rocking it for our 12s. So thank you for that, man. I love what I get to do here. Even on nights like this after a tough loss, it's a lot of fun to be able to chop this up with you guys, be able to try to figure this out and just try to think this one through. And it makes the loss easier for me too as well. So I'm saying the loss makes it easier, me talking to you guys, makes you guys easier to me on me to deal with this loss and disappointment, be able to have it with you guys as well and get through it with you guys as well. So thank you for that and being a part of this channel as you guys are. Long the King, JSN's elevated big time, man. He's looked awesome. Crashy, top 5 guys out of this draft you want? Just curious. I guess you're going to make me be realistic about this, right? So I got to be realistic. I can't shoot for the moon on him. I think Tyler Booker, left guard, would be one of those guys. I'm still kind of getting into offensive line. But Kelvin Banks, another guy, if you're not getting Booker, would be a guy that I might look at. I love Mason Graham. He's a guy that's not going to be available to us, and you don't need him as a defensive tackle, but I really like him as a player. One tech, nose tackle, he can do them both. Malachi Starks, safety for you, Georgia, can do it, kind of a do-it-all kind of player. Another guy a little bit like that, Njada Barron, more kind of slot kind of player, but a real fun guy as well. Deontay Corleone. These are guys in just varying places in the draft. They're just guys I like. I like Deontay Corleone, 6'1", nose tackle, fun player, heavy hands, plays really hard, just fun. just fun. Those would be the main guys for me, kind of off the rip and looking at them a bit. There's some ones I like too that are, but those are just guys I have kind of a fondness for here going in the draft. You caught me right at the end, Megan. Val Ramos, I got you, Brando. I'm hitting that like button. Thank you for that, Val. I know that's hard as a Niner fan too. I know it's like, it's like Jim Carrey in Lion Liar, where he's like, the pen is blue. And he's trying to say the pen's red, can't tell the lie. So I get it. I know how hard that is. JL says today was rough. Well, yesterday at this point, that was rough, JL. No ways to dress it up. And he says, I can't say I'm surprised by the results, but it still hurts. Yeah, it does. Nina, what do teams feel like is the best value the DK adds to the team? He's a centerpiece point of the offense that when defenses start every single week, Nina, and they go, okay, we're playing the Seattle Seahawks this week, and we have to draw up a game plan for how to deal with the Seattle Seahawks offense, where every single, not half the teams, not a quarter of the teams, where every single team in the NFL starts with this offense, and the first player that they're going to deal with their attention and how to deal with that player is DK Metcalf. Every single week. So his value beyond receptions, beyond double teams that he causes, he forces the defenses to make him a focal point of what they have to address and expend resources with the double and triple teams and expend resources to not concentrating on other players because he's that big of a problem for those teams. So that'd be the main thing. There's others in addition to that, of course. Consistency, how hard he plays, how hard he blocks. I've said, you give me a roster of 53 DK Metcalfs, Nina, I'll show you a Super Bowl championship. Young says, interested to see your thoughts on Wyatt Million when you start your draft coverage. I looked a little bit at him. He's a left tackle in college that you're looking at making that transition to left guard. There's some good things about him in his play out there in college. There are some whiffs. There is a little bit of some worry from me with his ankles, where the ankles are a little bit unsteady at times. There's a little bit of this like shakiness to him, where if you're going into guard and you've really got a plant in there much more firmly rooted to take on those defensive tackles, I wonder if he's really going to be able to do that. I haven't done the deep dive on him. I did watch just a couple of games to get a bit of a feel for that. I did put a 4th round grade on Wyatt initially there. I'm not as sure about him. Not bad tape. He's been very consistent as a player the past couple of years there at college. And I still need to do a bit of a deep dive on him, but there was some good and some bad there. Alex, hey, Brandon, my brother from another mother and my fellow 12s was a tough loss, but remember, it's not over until it's over. Aaron Rodgers is going up against his former team. We got to beat the Vikings. Got to beat the Vikings, man, Alex. And it ain't over. Like you said, we control our own destiny, and I'll tell you that's a great place to be at the end of the year, is that you get the opportunity to control how your season finishes. You got to win. You got to take care of business, but you get the opportunity to control your fate here. And so that's as good as you can ask for a season, especially a season like this where we're turning so many things kind of over a bit here. And hopefully the team can take advantage of that. We shall see. Crash, he says, JSN 6 yards from his first 1,000-yard season. Congrats to JSN. And since that Buffalo Bill game where it turned on, the light switch flipped, whatever happened, it's stayed on. And this is another game today where he got 10 catches, and he's been a revelation for us. Revelation for us. Largely, the run game was not as good as last week, though you didn't use it as much as last week either. I mean, 5.8 yards per carry on this game. You got away from the run very quickly. Megan says, can we beat the Vikes in your opinion, B? Not sure now. I'm not sure now, and I'm really reticent to believe that Geno's going to be able to play this week, Megan. And if he does play, I think he's going to be so reduced with his mobility and with the pressure in the pass rush of the Vikings. My prediction on this one's probably going to be a Viking win, unfortunately. Robin, all those DKs would have to be from different comic book universes, but no doubt that all DK team would run the barter town. You know they would, Robin. You know they would. It would be all universe. It would be multi-dimensional, right? But you give me players that play hard like that care as much as that try as much as that will play through injuries, that will get out there every single week. That's a good damn team that we put together if you did. Daniel says, Aaron Rodgers not going up against Aaron Rodgers is not going up against the Rams. That's not his former team. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. It's the Rams he's going up against. You're right on that, Daniel. I'd forgotten about that. Alex got that one a little bit wrong, though. A little wrong on that. It's all right. All right, folks. We are going to head out here. Jimbo says it's not the end of the world. They weren't going to win 7 or 8 in a row. It's not the end of the world, Jimbo. You control your fate. You got a season here left where there's still time for you to find a way to find that footing to get yourself in the playoffs. Odds look a little bit long, but they're not impossible. And we'll have to see if this team can find that answer. It's a team that we've looked for this year, offensively and defensively, for that identity, for that, here's what we are. We can at least lean on this thing, and then we can work off of that. And it's been hard to find. As offense has found some moments and points, defense has found its moments and points, and then it'll lose it and take that step back. So that's been difficult. But the one thing the team has had, and then I think that they will show back up on this year, is that resiliency, is that willingness to continue to fight, to continue to scrap. And sometimes that can take them to the good end of it, as we've seen, is what partly what brought you to being on top of this division this year at the point in time coming into this game as you were. So while this is a tough loss, and while many of you are down after this point and thinking, man, it's about to start to look to next year now here, this is an indicator. This was a test, and we failed it. It's not over yet. Fat lady ain't singing. You still have everything there to you go and claim and go grab. It's a very talented team. You're still in pretty good health in the overall standpoint of things. Got to get the work done. It's going to be heavy. Vikings, Rams, 2 of your last 3 games. Thursday night football, Chicago, short week. Ain't going to be easy. Out on the road, ain't going to be easy. But all you can ask, you got a chance. All you can ask is, hey, let me still keep throwing punches until this thing's fully done. So let's see how the Seahawks respond this next week. I will be back throughout this week doing some shows, see if this team can respond, see if they can find some answers, see if Sam Howell can improve kind of mightily from what we saw here today. So that was brutal. I thank you guys for watching today. Please, again, do hit that like and sub on up if you can for me. I would really appreciate it. Back soon, but until this Tuesday, please don't you ever forget, even after a loss like this, we're still fighting. We're still in this. Don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.